As a premier community in Hampton Roads, James City County strives to maintain a high quality of life for all citizens through sound fiscal management and legislative actions. In an ongoing effort to increase transparency, your Board of Supervisors holds public meetings to garner citizen input before making important decisions. Here is tonight's meeting agenda. Stay tuned. The Board of Supervisors meeting will begin shortly.
All right, I'll go ahead and call this meeting of James City County Board of Supervisors regular meeting to order on December 14th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Ms. Sadler?
Here.
Ms. Sadler represents the Stonehouse District and is Vice Chair to the Board. Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower represents the Jamestown District. Ms. Larson?
Here.
Ms. Larson represents the Berkeley District. Mr. McGlennon?
Here.
Mr. McGlennon represents the Roberts District. Mr. Hipple?
Here.
Mr. Hipple represents the Powhatan District and is Chair of the Board. Sitting to my far right is Adam Kinsman, County Attorney, and I'm Scott Stevens, County Administrator, and it's my pleasure to be Clerk to the Board.
Thank you, sir. I'm requesting that we add to the consent calendar a grant award for the Gardenership Navigation Program in the amount of $73,000, as well as an appropriation for the Williamsburg-James City County School Division in the amount of $2,799,920. May I have a motion to add these to the agenda?
Motion.
Motion. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hipple?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, next, before we go into the chairmanship award, I asked Thumper Newman to come forward and give us a little bit of story on the project that he's been working on for 20 plus years. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Thumper Newman. I run a food bank here in town called A Gift from Ben. And the charity began about 20 years ago when I lost my son in a car accident on Centerville and Monticello. And after the accident, I went out and visited Sister Bernice at St. Bede's Church. This is 20 years ago. And they had a ministry going where they were going around and picking up food from the local stores and delivering it into the community. And up until that point, I guess my sole purpose in life had been to make money and to build a big house and to have kind of the finer things in life. Wasn't really looking at the poor or knowing how many poor people there were in the community. They got me on a van in January 2002 and took me out to Burn Ordinary after we picked up a whole lot of food. And there were about 35, 40 people standing out in the cold. And I was really surprised. I had no idea that there would be people waiting in the cold for this truckload of food that we were on to come out there. So when I got home, I told my family, I said, this is amazing. I can't believe the food these people picked up, and I can't believe the number of people they helped. I can't believe the number of poor people. So we went through the IRS procedure to do the paperwork to become nonprofit, and there's a bunch of paperwork to be done. And we got the paperwork done, and a couple months later, St. Bede's called and said that they were going to stop their operation, and they wanted to hand it over to me and let me run it. And that's what I've been doing. Kind of like I feel like that's what the Lord's purpose. He gave me a purpose, and that was to move food to the poor in the community, and that's what we've been doing for 20 years. There's still a great deal of need in the community. The stores in this town are incredibly generous. I have to mention them. The food lines I pick up from Trader Joe's, Harris Teeter, Earth Fare, Fresh Market, even a bagel shop. We move roughly 60,000 pounds of food a month on average for the last 20 years. It's tiring, it's a lot of physical work, but it's a great joy. There are a lot of people out here that are less fortunate. We are very fortunate to live in a community where we have so much food and we can get it to the people. I'm very thankful for the last 20 years. Very thankful.
Well, Thumper, I want to, it's hard to come forward. We're lucky as a board to recognize citizens in our community. And I want to recognize you from this board. And whereas many households throughout the county have difficulty providing enough food, and hardworking families must make a difficult choice between necessities such as rent, food, utilities, and medication. And whereas addressing the food insecurity needs of children, men, women, and seniors is fundamental to the future of James City County. And whereas Everett W. Newman began a gift from Ben as a way to honor the memory of his own son, Ben, who cared deeply for helping to feed the hungry. And whereas after almost 20 years, a gift from Ben has grown to be one of the community's largest food charities that provide approximately 60,000 pounds of food a month to the food insecure members of our community. And whereas all the food collected in the community stays in the community to help those in need, and Mr. Newman is determined to end the hunger in our community one meal at a time. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors of James City County, Virginia, hereby recognize Everett Thumper Newman and a gift from Ben, and present this award as a token of our appreciation for his dedication, service to the county and the community.
Thank you very much. Thank y'all so much.
Would you like to do a picture with the board?
Sure.
Come on.
Sure.
She must stay back here.
All right. I'll be back there with them if you, in fact.
Or you can stay, yeah. Congratulations. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great community that we live.
All right, my next presentation is Bernadette Williams. Forward. Whereas Bernadette Williams has served James City County for the past years supporting operational readiness of the fire department. Whereas Ms. Williams has worked tirelessly to ensure the firefighters of James City County are properly equipped to perform their duties, often working early mornings and late evenings. And whereas Ms. Williams served in a key role to encourage new fire department employees are properly sized and outfitted with uniforms and personal protective equipment to ensure they have the tools to provide excellent public service. And whereas Ms. Williams routinely responds to major incidents often outside the work hours and provides fire department staff and extremely partners with the proper rehabilitation and refreshments. And whereas Ms. Williams selflessly donated a kidney to the late District Chief Buster Kennedy, allowing him to continue working many more years for the James City County Fire Department. And whereas Ms. Williams recently played a vital role in the logistics and operations of the Greater Williamsburg Vaccination Clinic, which administered over 22,000 vaccines to local residents and workers. And whereas Ms. Williams exemplifies the county's values and have earned her unofficial role as the mother of James City County Fire Department. Now therefore be resolved that the chairman of the Board of Supervisors of James City County, Virginia, do hereby recognize Bernadette Williams and present this award as a token of appreciation for her dedicated service to the county and to the community. Great job. I still have a few more words, and
Take me more.
you know, Bernadette has been so special to the volunteer fire department and the paid fire department. I mean, when we're out there doing certain things, you'll see her pop up here and there. As all you can see the firefighters and EMS personnel that are out here today for you. And we try to keep it a secret. And I just noticed,
It's a secret.
thank you. I just noticed through the years how dedicated you were and how much you put in and never said a word. You were just there. You helped all of us. Didn't matter what we were doing, where we're at in the fire department. You were always there and always dedicated. And I know Buster appreciated you so much. And, you know, and all the work you did there and all the help you did with him.
Well,
And it just shows your love for the men and women of the fire department and the dedication to James City County. And I thought you very much deserved this award.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you want to say something, mic's yours.
Well, you might, I'm speechless. So those of you who know me, thank you very much. It's an honor. I love my job. It is. Thank you very much.
You want to come get a picture?
Sure. Of course. I guess I can bring this.
That's yours to keep.
We've never had this many fire people at our meeting before.
We are honored to have you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take your mask off for the picture, or?
No.
Okay, all right.
Well, believe me when I tell you, that's probably the best part of our job right there. So next we'll move in, we'll have a moment of silence. Before that, we'll have the pledge leader and Mr. McGlinnan, Supervisor McGlinnan, if you'll lead us off on that, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, it's a special pleasure tonight to introduce Lydia Moore, mostly because when I saw her name on the agenda for tonight, I thought, can that possibly be Lydia, who lives 2 blocks away? And lo and behold, it is. Lydia and her brother and sister Isaac and Ruth live with their parents Rachel and Nathan in the Rolling Woods subdivision. She attends Laurel Lane Elementary School, which is in the 4th grade, and is very interested in gymnastics. She likes music and animals, and I can tell you that a certain animal that I walk around the neighborhood quite frequently is in love with Lydia. Every time she sees him, she greets him warmly, and he gets a nice little belly rub. So Lydia has been a delight in the community, and she will lead us tonight in the pledge after we have a moment of silence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lydia, if you come on up. This is a certificate and a James City County pin. Thank you very much. Good job, Lydia.
All right, next we'll move into public comment. Any public comment speaker cards? I don't think we do we? I don't see any up here, so we must not. Okay. Next we'll move into consent calendar. Consent calendars consist of 8 items. Are there any items any member wishes to pull, to discuss? Or before that, I can do item 5. I know there's some questions on that, so I could bring the chief. Chief, if you'll come forward. Chief Ryan Ash, thank you, sir, for attending. And he'll discuss a little bit about that item.
Good evening. So we're pulling up a presentation. Just got a couple quick slides. So before you on the consent calendar is the item authorizing the county administrator to enter into a memorandum of agreement for the next phase of the upgrade to our radio system. So it's been about 5 years since we were in front of you doing the last phase. So I thought it wouldn't hurt just to do a couple slides to kind of explain a little bit about the history and what the first phase did and what we're hoping to do in phase 2. So just as a reminder, in 2001, James City County had an aging radio system, so did York County at the time. There were some independent studies being done to look at what were the needs there. We didn't really have good radio coverage. We didn't have the coverage inside of buildings that we needed. There was areas in the county that didn't work. And through that study, they recommended a regional radio system. York County was doing another independent study and also had that same recommendation. So between 2001 and 2004, the two counties worked together, created a partnership, and in 2004, we went live with the James City County, York County 800 megahertz radio system. And we shared those costs 50-50, and we shared the maintenance cost 50-50. And part of that process, we created a regional governance structure. I serve as a representative to the board now, to that group for James City County. And then there's a policy team that the fire chief, police chief, and county administrator serve on that really governs how those dollars are spent, and has done so since 2004. In 2010, Gloucester County was kind of in a similar situation to where we had been 10 years earlier, poor coverage, those types of things. And they did a study and recommended that they reach out to other regional partners. And they contacted us, and it worked out to where they could join the system as well. And so their buy-in to the system funded a software upgrade that we needed at the time anyway. And then that gave us the advantage of being able to share those maintenance costs at 40%, and 20% to Gloucester. So reduce the cost for York and James City, and actually offered us some enhanced coverage in some areas along the York River that we didn't have quite as good coverage, Croker Landing, those areas like that. And then in 2016, which was the last time we were before this board talking about radio system, in 2016, we reached out to Suffolk and Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight County was joining the Suffolk radio system at the time. We recognized that was kind of a link for us across the river, and we had an opportunity, if they were willing to partner, where we could connect the two systems together. And that offered us a geodiverse switch, which is kind of the main brain that runs the radio system. We only had one of those, so being able to share that with Suffolk will give both of us redundancy. So in 2016, we entered that agreement that we would include that in the next phase, in the first phase of our upgrade. So back in 2016, when we were working through the life cycle management plan, we came up with a 15-year plan, really in 3 5-year phases. The first one, we started in fiscal year 17. That upgraded, again, the main switch, the brain that ran the radio system, our software. As you can see, some of the components there that we looked at in staging in Chicago. It's really all the things that make the system operate from a technology standpoint. A lot of that equipment's in our back room in the 911 center or in each of the buildings located at our tower sites. And then we also connected the microwave system to give us that backup with Suffolk. So you can see we did a lease purchase agreement at the time. We made an additional down payment and then 4 more payments of just under $1 million over those other 4 fiscal years. So tonight, if you approve this item and authorize Mr. Stevens to enter another MOU, it would be the second phase of this project. So the first one's really based on a lot of the technology components. This is really more of an infrastructure. So we're looking at those same components that we replaced that are 15 to 18 years old. Well, so are the buildings and the air conditioning systems, the backup generators, all the things that keeps our tower sites up and running in the event of power outages, keeps all the electronics cool or warm, depending if it's wintertime. So we're replacing emergency generators, all our HVAC equipment. All the radio towers are connected together with microwave dishes, so we don't rely on underground cabling to connect those together. All the antennas and lighting and things that go on the towers, and also included would be our 911 call handling equipment. We try to replace that about every 6 to 8 years, and that's how we receive all of our incoming 911 calls. It's also a shared system with York County, so we'd be replacing both sides. Our recording systems, and then finally also included in this is the replacement of the vehicle mounted, or we call them mobile radios, that are in each police car, fire truck, ambulance, sheriff's vehicle here in the county. So all those would be together in this purchase. James City County's share of that is just over $5 million, and we're recommending a lease purchase agreement again. That would put our payment at just a little bit over $1 million. This is included and planned in our budget, and working with Ms. Day's team, we'll continue to put that in for the next 5 years to make those payments. So it wouldn't start until fiscal year 23, but we enter in the agreement now to get those wheels in motion. And York will serve as the fiscal agent, but this sort of authorizes us that we're committing to our share of the lease purchase.
Any questions?
Did you say Sheriff's Department or did I misunderstand?
Yes, so the Williamsburg-James City County Sheriff's Office, their vehicles also have mobile radios in them.
Okay, and theirs will be upgraded as well?
That's correct.
And is that an expense that, is James City taking on that entire expense for that?
I'm sure, and Chief, we get our proportionate share back from the departments that are outside of us, whether that is the jail that is also upgrading some radios in a separate event, and the sheriff and their mobile units ought to be paid back is through their operating costs.
Thank you very much for the explanation.
And Chief, I know this is, includes what you might think of as a kind of insurance cost. You hope you never have to use it. But have we had experiences now where we've actually benefited from that redundancy that we have now with Isle of Wight and Suffolk?
Not yet. So that system is up and running now, and we're actually getting ready to reprogram all of our devices to be live on that link. So we have been actually, the end users haven't known it, but there's actually been a couple of months recently where we've been operating on the City of Suffolk switch as part of the testing. We had a chance when we were in Chicago staging the equipment, literally one of the engineers walked to the back of the rack, pulled the power cable out of the back of our switch that we were in Chicago, and we began to talk on the City of Suffolk switch located back here in Virginia. And it's about 10 seconds that occurs, that switch over. So some folks have asked, why do you partner with Suffolk? They're not really close to us, even though they do share, Isle of Wight shares a border across the river. And that's really why. We want to be separate power grids, separate weather systems, hopefully, those types of things to really be as diverse as possible. So we have not had that go down yet, but we certainly have done it in testing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to say Merry Christmas and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks. All right.
Chairman, with that, I move the adoption of the consent calendar.
Thank you. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Next is in our PC rep is Frank Polster. Mr. Polster, thank you for coming tonight. Our first public hearing is ORD-20-0015, zoning ordinance amendment to address the keeping of bees in non-residential. Terry, welcome. How you doing today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. On September 8th, 2020, the Board of Supervisors adopted an initiating resolution directing staff to address beekeeping in non-residential areas. The keeping of bees is currently permitted in residential and agricultural districts. Since mixed use has the potential of both commercial and residential uses on a property, it was included in this analysis. Accordingly, staff conducted research on other localities similar to what was done during the residential districts review. Of the few localities that do permit this use in non-residential districts, the standards were the same for residential and non-residential. A draft ordinance was reviewed during a series of policy committee meetings. At its September 9th meeting, the policy committee unanimously recommended approval of the draft ordinance to the Planning Commission. At its November 3rd meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the ordinance to the Board of Supervisors by a vote of 6-0. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve the ordinance amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Questions? Well, thank you. Mr. Polster.
As you may recall, the board approved Section 2447-1 Standards for Beekeeping and also tasked the Planning Commission to examine the non-residential beekeeping zoning areas. Like the previous ordinance, The staff conducted 3 sessions with the policy committee, and at its September meeting, the policy committee talked about this requirement of having notification to adjacent property owners. It was deleted from the ordinance due to the regulation being unenforceable. At the November Planning Commission meeting, we had no speakers at the public hearing, and there were no discussions between the commissioners on the special unit permit. On the roll call vote of 6-0, we voted to recommend approval of the ordinance to address the beekeeping and for non-residential, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, we're in the analysis of this and looking at other jurisdictions where they allow it in non-residential areas.
Yeah, exactly.
How often is it used?
Well, as a matter of fact, the one that we looked at was the city of Williamsburg and the meadery piece. And so we were asking about how did that take place, because it was up on the roof and the access to it and things of that sort. I think that was the only one that we really knew of at the time that had been done for it. So that's why we went ahead with this.
Okay, so it's not a very common experience in
Apparently not.
non-residential. Okay.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and open up public comment. I don't see any speaker cards, so I'll go ahead and close that public comment. Look for the board for direction or decision.
Chairman, I move the adoption of the ordinance.
Thank you. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Sadler.
Aye.
Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. Ripple.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, number 2 is SUP-21-0016, Williamsburg Unitarian Universal Church School. Terry, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Joe Cross of the Williamsburg Unitarian Universalist Church has applied for a special use permit to allow for a school within the existing church located at 3051 Ironbound Road. The property is zoned R8 Rural Residential, is designated Low-Density Residential on the Comprehensive Land Use Map, and is located inside the primary service area. The church has occupied this facility since January of 1997. An SUP was approved in January 2015 to expand the building and parking area and permit the other 2 structures on the property as accessory to the church. The school will have a maximum of 30 children with 5 staff members. The age range will be from pre-K to kindergarten. The hours of operation will be from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Hours of instruction will be 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. There will be a few children in daycare before 8:30 and after 3 p.m., but the majority of children will be picked up in a car line similar to other schools and preschools. The school will operate within the current facility and utilize the outdoor play area. Staff finds this proposal to be compatible with surrounding development and consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. At its November 3rd meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application by a vote of 6-0. Staff recommends approval of the application subject to the condition in tonight's packet. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is also available. Thank you.
Questions?
Great job, thank you. Mr. Polster.
At the November Planning Commission meeting, we had no speakers, no public hearing, and there was no questions for staff, and there was no discussion amongst commissioners. On a roll call vote of 6-0, we voted to recommend approval of SUP 21-00118 to the Board of Supervisors, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are.
Questions? You. All right, I'll open it up. I have 1 speaker card, Sharon Dennis. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Dennis. So, as some of you may know, I had an SUP for daycare center.
Sharon, excuse me for interrupting you, but can you give us your address too for the record?
I'm sorry.
That's
100
okay.
St. George's Boulevard, Williamsburg, Virginia.
Thank you.
23185. So a while back, I had gotten an SUP to have a daycare center, but at the time, the Planning Commission had created a comprehensive plan that made conditions impossible for me to meet and open up. So finally, I had to close. and that was after $20,000 plus on engineering fees. So I didn't want to lose the property. I rented it out right away. I found I wasn't getting paid and I was going to lose it. So my husband had to buy it so I could keep it, or at least the one parcel, which I did get an SUP for a short-term rental. Thank God. I'm thrilled. I get to keep the property, albeit it's in my husband's name. Now, this child care center that's going to open up, I'm supporting it. I love children, I love the community. This is what I spent 20 plus years doing. The thing is, it's at the head of my property. And the only thing I can think of that will allow me to make use of that property is, and I was prepared before I heard about this, and I wasn't at the planning board meeting for this child care center. I'm very busy, really busy, helping people, saving lives, that kind of thing. So the thing is, I just got the money, I was just getting the plans to put, finally, a building on this parcel, finally recovering from what I had lost all those years. And I've come to learn that the planning board has an agenda where they're not very comfortable with short-term rentals. Long-term rental, I lose money, especially because of square footage. I'm not putting a 3,000 square foot up. So what I'm here to say is I support the church in doing this good service in the community. I've asked them personally, we've had a talk, if we could just put some more screenage up, because now my property, you know, is losing some value when you have a big parking lot and you have the playground in the back, and I no longer am able to do a child care center of my own. But I am going to put up a building, a cottage, make it really cute. So I want some consideration. I'm only saying this now. I know you can't, I've got to go through a process. But I didn't want to leave to run out to San Diego to another urgency tonight without having my face in front of you, so that when I do come with a short-term rental SUP request, that will you please give me some consideration so I can keep my property, that I can have something to give my children, that I can do something nice in the community, because well, we'll get into that another time. That's it. I'm leaving. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Sharon, as you move through that process, if you get with our county staff, they'll help you along the way and lead you in the right direction.
She's
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and close that public hearing and
make the motion for
motion.
approval. Yep.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Next is 3 SUP 19-0006 Hazelwood Farm Village Center. Thomas, how you doing, sir? Welcome.
Doing well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the board. Mr. Tim Trant of Kaufman & Knowles has applied on behalf of Hazelwood Farms LLC and Hazelwood RM trustee for a special use permit on approximately 79 acres to permit up to 510,000 square feet of commercial development to allow for the following specially permitted uses on the properties: a convenience store which sells and dispenses fuel, extension of public water and sewer facilities, commercial buildings or group of buildings that exceed 10,000 square feet of floor area and are within the square footage limits shown on the master plan, commercial buildings or group of buildings, not including office uses, which generate or would be expected to generate a total of 100 or more additional trips to and from the site during the peak hour of the operation, any buildings, additions, and expansions requiring an SUP pursuant to County Code Section 2411B. The site is located inside the primary service area, is zoned for general business, and is designated for mixed-use stone house on the adopted comprehensive plan. For this area between Interstate 64 and Old Stage Road, the comprehensive plan specifically recommends community-scale commercial uses, such as a shopping center, hotel, restaurant, and office uses. The county is proposing conditions to mitigate impacts associated with the special uses. These conditions include the recommended transportation improvements from the improved traffic impact analysis for this project, enhanced landscape buffering along the Barnes Road, Route 30, and Interstate 64 right-of-way, enhanced site design and architectural design for each building, including adherence to the submitted design guidelines, the requirement for sustainable design initiatives, and specific restrictions regarding location and site features for certain commercial uses. Staff finds that the special use permit will not negatively impact surrounding development and that the proposed conditions will help mitigate the impacts that are generated by the proposal. Staff also finds that the development of the property for the proposed commercial use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. At its October 6th regular meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application with the proposed conditions by a vote of 6-0. Staff recommends that the board approves this application subject to the proposed SUP conditions. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant team is here tonight as well. Thank you.
Questions?
Not just yet.
Good question.
I'm going to wait.
Okay. Questions? Anyone else?
I just had one, and that is, could you talk a little bit about the way in which future amendments or changes to the plan would be addressed that might require special use permits?
Sure. So any, well, let me make sure I follow your question. Any changes that would vary from the if you all approved the master plan and the applicant wanted to do something that was at variance with the master plan, they would have to come back in and amend the master plan to permit that.
Right. I guess what I'm really more interested in is the question of uses that are proposed or suggested here, or that kind of described, because there's not really a very clear sense of what exactly would wind up being in the center. This would not necessitate, in cases where we currently would require an SUP to be approved, as long as they fell within the general category, it would be acceptable. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. This would cover those uses that otherwise would have to come in for an individual SUP for each building.
And I guess I'm wondering, how often do we do that?
I don't think it's common. I don't know if, Paul, you know of any examples that come to mind, but.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Yeah, I don't know that it's happened with great quantity. You know, the one that probably immediately sticks out would be there's a couple of those commercial parcels out there in front of Colonial Heritage.
Yeah, that's what kind of got my radar up on this.
Yeah, would be
I'm not sure those have turned out to be great examples.
So, you know, for this one in particular, staff has modeled all of the SUP conditions on some of the more familiar commercial projects that are more recent and that you might be aware, such as a Lightfoot Marketplace or the recent 3 or 4 most recent SUPs for convenience stores with gas pumps, for example. So that's where we pulled some of the SUP conditions that were recommended.
So I don't know whether it's possible to guess this, but what would be a kind of worst case scenario?
In what context?
In the sense that things could happen that would wind up not requiring any kind of consideration by the board.
I think as Mr. Wysong mentioned, so as staff has proposed in the conditions, it does bind the development to the binding master plan, all of the conditions, and consistent with the design guidelines. You know, in terms of this, so what that would cover, and to expand a little bit on your earlier question, that includes the by right uses in B1. Mm-hmm. It includes the convenience store with gas pumps, of which their quantity is limited, the fast food, the quantity of which is limited, and those items which require the commercial special use permit, which really go towards the peak hour trips, of which there are conditions to mitigate traffic impacts, and really the square footage exceeding the commercial SUP. But again, staff has proposed conditions that are designed to mitigate those impacts, and of course there are corresponding design guidelines and a lot of those limitations in there. So, you know, I think Mr. Wysong mentioned earlier, you know, worst case scenario would be something that would come in that's inconsistent with those SUP conditions. Staff cannot grant a modification to those administratively. Those would have to come back to the board. And certainly any development that would be inconsistent with the master plan would need to come back as well.
And just one last thing, so if, because this is a proposal that, as I understand it, is projected to be sometime in the future by somebody other than the current property owner. And let's say that the board at some point added another case in which an SUP would be required. With that additional one would also not require consideration by the board?
If I understand your
Yeah.
comment correctly, and I'll get Adam to gut check me, if in a future ordinance update, there was a use that was identified as a specially permitted use that is not otherwise already covered by this SUP. So the SUP uses on this one are the commercial SUPs, the fast food and convenience store. Then because this, I believe the new SUP requirements would be covered. This SUP is for the commercial SUP, which is really talks about the minimum square footage, traffic generation, and those types of things. In terms of the specific uses that are listed as SUP, we've only got those couple ones in there, and for the water sewer extension, that's an SUP use as well. But, you know, for currently by right uses, if those get moved into the SUP category, and those aren't already specifically listed in this, then they would not be covered.
So that would still have to come before? Correct. Okay, thank you.
Since you're up here, if I could just clarify something. This property is currently zoned B1, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as I understand it, every piece of property in the county has a zoning designation, correct? Okay, and then each of those have allowed uses as a matter of right. That's correct? Okay.
Correct.
And because of those uses as a matter of right, anybody who wanted to build those particular commercial buildings on a B1 piece of property, they would not have to come to us for approval.
There are B1 by right uses that would not require a special use permit. That's correct.
I don't mean to put you on the spot,
That's
but
okay.
do you have a list of maybe what some of those by right uses could be, since this property is already B1? Just in general. You don't have to give a whole,
No, we're not going to give
Sure.
a whole list. We'll give 3 or 4.
just to get an idea of what we are
Examples
looking
anyway.
at.
Right, so as Paul said, there are a number of uses that could be built by right without any legislative approval, meaning there would be no master plan, county conditions, or public hearings.
I'm sorry, can you speak up just a
Yes.
little? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So there are a number of uses that can be built today without any legislative approval, meaning there's no master plan, county conditions, or public hearings. Examples of those include business and professional offices, lumber and building supply, and wholesale and warehousing, which would include, self-storage facilities.
Right, but any of those by right uses that required, or any by right use that would require a special use permit would have to come for that approval.
Correct, yes.
But those particular ones,
Those are by right.
those are by right, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right.
I reserve the right to call you back if I have more. Thanks.
Mr. Polster, welcome again.
At our 6 October Planning Commission meeting, we heard quite a few comments on increased traffic on the Route 30 from the New Kent County south. For specific concerns were on the Route 30 north towards the Barnesville Road intersection, where we go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, and off that side road there, where people are starting to use it are concerned about a cut through for it in the future. We were also had discussions on the phasing of the hearing that clarified all the unintended positive consequence of the traffic piece, and that had to do with the already approved master plan for the Moss Creek commercial area, which would have had its entrance on the Fieldstone Parkway. And because of the traffic study, what would happen is that entrance would actually move north to the Barnesville Road, and in fact would trigger a stoplight piece and a turn lane. So that 2 lanes to 4 then gets slowed down. And of course, we had some comments about the new speed limit thing that still hasn't slowed folks down on that road, as you well know. 2 of the commissioners questioned the open-ended nature of the commercial building space of over 10,000 square feet. The explanation that came in from Mr. Hopke, the project architect, was that the goal for the complex was for it to look like an assembly of small buildings having with just a set of a monolithic footprint on there. And the design guidelines and the conditions accompanying the graphics describes what those different views could look like for it. And of course, it was specific to those pieces that are going to front on Route 30 that they were concerned about, we're talking about, in terms of what would the visual aesthetics look like. So anyhow, that was answered through the design guidelines and the explanation from them. 2 of the commissioners commented on the basis of our recent 245 comprehensive plan and the updated 2020 census data for the county, and that the county growth would continue in the upper county. The village center, already zone B1, should provide or could provide amenities not available to the area of this county for. On a roll call vote of 6-0, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the Board of Supervisors, and of course, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? One, my understanding by looking at this design guidelines and plans and everything is essentially those parcels 1, 2, and 3, land base 1, 2, and 3 that are in front of the Route 30 could ostensibly be each a little mini strip mall.
I mean, you could characterize it that way. I mean, there were some examples of different places within the county. There's some places, I think they have pictures from Newtown that Mr. Hopke had. There were also, I think, on that Nord Shopping Center piece where the old Fresh Market was, I think there were some pictures out of that as examples for it. I think those are the 2 that caught my mind that I recognize from in the county. I think the Newtown Road across from Barnes and Noble was another example of what that would look like for it. And I don't think any of those, in my opinion, look like a strip mall. Any other questions?
Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Tim Trant. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Tim Trant, attorney with Kaufman & Knoll's offices here in James City County, 4801 Courthouse Street in Newtown. It's my privilege to be here tonight on behalf of the applicant. I'll introduce quickly our project team, all of which are assembled here this evening, and turn over. I'm going to tag team the presentation this evening with Mr. Hazelwood, who offers some remarks about the family and the genesis of this application. But the landowner is the Hazelwood Farms LLC, but in practice it's the 3 Hazelwood siblings, Larry, Debbie, and RM. Larry and Debbie being here this evening, RM is not with us. AES Consulting Engineers, our project engineer, Mr. Arch Marston, is here this evening and able to answer any questions you have from an engineering perspective. John Hopke, our design professional for architecture and design guidelines, our conscience in the design of the project. Dexter Williams with DRW Consultants is our traffic consultant, and then last but not least is me on the legal side. But I'll turn it over quickly to Larry just to offer some remarks about the family, and I'll pick up from there on some of the technical pieces.
Chairman, board, supervisors, thank you for this opportunity to address you. At the risk of being redundant, the last time I stood before you, I think Mr. McLennan and Mr. Hipple were here. Basically, I told you 5 years ago that this was going to be a project that we're trying to prepare for the next generation. We're the 4th generation Hazelwoods on the property. There's a 5th generation and a 6th generation. My brother, RM, or Robert, and my sister, Debbie Hazelwood Drudge over here, we've been united on this, and in those 5 years, since we were last here, that project team that we have behind us, we have been working on this thing for a solid 5 years, back and forth. And I think we've come up with some decent ideas and some plans. But our job here, my job here tonight, is to tell you, we've been on this property. Hazelwoods have farmed this property since 1886. And to put that in perspective, you know, that's only like 21 years after the war between the states. So we've been there quite a while. And our goal is simply, my brother and sister and I, our goal is simply to position this property for a higher and better use while we're still here. Because the next generation, they don't live in the area, or they're not that familiar with James City County. So we're trying to do this for them to prepare that whenever that day comes. And quite frankly, the farming business is a tough business, especially if it's a small farm, and that's what this is termed, as a small farm. So it's not a self-sustaining farm. When the State Highway Department actually split the farm in half, my grandparents on one side and my parents on the other side of the interstate, it became a very difficult operation to manage, became less efficient. And since then, we've always known that as a self-sustaining farm, it would not survive forever. And our farmer has been with us for 35 years. He's 66. He brings $1 million worth of farm equipment to our little place every spring of the year. And I don't know what we'll do when he retires, but he's warned me he's going to retire sooner or later. So we have that to deal with. And then the last thing that's probably most important for you to know about the Hazelwood family is our roots are deep in James City County. Our grandfather was on the school board that joined the city and the county together. Our father was on this board. We went to Matthew Whaley. We went to James Blair. We all worked and played on this land. We do live somewhere else. We don't live very far away, but we don't live in James City County anymore. So we were the last generation to live on the farm. And it's time to start preparing for the future for those next generations. So we're actively trying to pursue some good ideas, and we had some good ideas, and we've had some good input from the county, I might say. And as a last comment, I want to thank the county staff for their great work, from Paul Holt's crew. I mean, you guys have been wonderful, and it's been a long 8 or 9 years, I guess, we've been working with you. So we thank you for that. Thank you for your time. You know, I didn't give my address. Would you want that,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
2420 Ocean Shore Crescent. That's in Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Larry. I mean, there's already been some discussion around this, but just to hit on for comparison and trying to understand what's being asked of you and what the alternatives are and what Larry and his siblings are trying to avoid. The property is currently zoned B1. It's about 75 acres. It's all B1. As you can see there's about 5 parcels that are in existence. And just to understand what the by right development scenarios, what they're worried about is, you know, they, heaven forbid, one of them or all of them pass. This is left to, you know, multiple children of each of them. Hard to draw consensus from that many voices. The economics of funding and supporting an effort like this and a property and a more thoughtful development plan is not likely. And it would likely be marketed and sold in the most efficient manner possible, which would be through a by right development scenario. Again, these 5 parcels through a boundary line adjustment could be reconfigured, each to have an access onto Route 30. You know, the smart play, if you wanted to do that, would be to reserve that 5th parcel as sort of a large parcel in the rear that would then be subject to a minor you could subject to a minor subdivision. You end up with 9 parcels and potentially more depending on how the properties got sold and distributed. But 9 parcels would be a pretty easy task. It would result in at least 5 access points on Route 30, direct access points, and probably at least 2 on Barnes Road. Ms. Sadler asked, and so I'll try not to be redundant earlier about sort of what the by right uses are under B1. There are many, some, but some as folks have pointed out, do require a special use permit, even if they're by right, if they're more than 10,000 square feet, or the use generates more than 100, is a commercial use generates more than 100 vehicle trips in the peak hour, or 1,000 vehicle trips throughout the day, it would still get drawn into a conditional use permit process. But these are a list, just a smattering, not conclusive in any way, of by right uses that I think would be likely to go out there and would not require those not hit any of those special use permit triggers that I just mentioned. Those are contractors' offices, building supply companies, kennels, automotive repair businesses, automobile and trailer sales and service businesses. All of those are uses that would find property like this attractive in that by right development scenario, and would not likely to be more than 10,000 square feet in size or trigger any of those trip generations, and could go in by right. It's no architectural control, no special landscape and buffering requirements, no common entrance, no comprehensive plan for traffic improvements or architectural treatment, and just not respectful of and not reflective of what is a gateway property to the county at an interstate interchange and across the street from a very, very attractive and prominent neighborhood, the Stonehouse community, which is slated over the next few years to add an additional almost 2,000 homes. So not what we would think would be the right way to go in the scenario that the Hazelwoods are trying to avoid with this application. And even for those uses, as Mr. McGlennon pointed out, that would trigger a special use permit. So if it were developed by right and a convenience store with gas station were to come along, or a fast food restaurant, most of those uses would certainly trigger a conditional use permit, but they would come in individually on a single parcel. And I think some of the confusion that folks have had is that we are accustomed with a developing county to see some parcel-specific development where a Wawa, for example, comes in and wants to go on one parcel. Well, that's one user on one parcel, and you get a lot of detail because you know everything there is to know about what's going to happen on that one parcel. But for shopping center development, you don't have typically that level of certainty, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So for that single parcel user, you might have much more understanding and input on what happens specifically on that parcel, but none on the remaining parcels, right? No insistence upon a consistent architectural theme. It would be piecemeal. They'd come in one at a time over a course of years, and that there would be a considerable amount, in my humble opinion, lost in that process that you gain with a master plan and a set of design guidelines and a comprehensive zoning approval like this. And I've already talked about the mechanism for the boundary line adjustment and minor subdivision. So next is in the family's direction from the beginning. And believe me, there have been times when we have asked as a design team of the siblings, you sure you really want to do this? I mean, look what you're committing yourself to, and the by right scenario is not all that unattractive economically. And they have said, no, look, we that is not consistent with our family's history, our father's direction about the disposition of this property, and we want to do better than that. And by the way, Tim, we don't want to fight this. We don't want to go against the grain. We want to do what we believe is consistent with the county's vision. And that has from the beginning been the comp plan, which has been that way as long as I can remember. It's been Zone B1 as long as I've been doing this, which is 20 years. The comp plan, which was recently adopted, approved unanimously by the Planning Commission and the board not 2 months ago, says specifically for this area, for the area of I-64 and Old Stage Road, community scale commercial. I won't read to you all that it says, but I will simply show you. You know what it says. You just approved it, I'm sure. But this is our concept plan from the design guidelines. It is identical. It has every element of that in there, right? It's got, look, shopping center, hotel, restaurant, office uses. There's also other elements of this language that talk about open space and community space. You look at the comp plan designation, and there's my pointer. You will see there's a potential hotel, motel location. You've got inline shops for retail and office here. At the parking, got a communal space here, park recreation space, potential food store, grocery store, commercial out parcels, and I'll let Mr. Hopke speak to it more authoritatively, Mr. Eisenhower, but it is absolutely the opposite of strip development, strip shopping center development. There's sort of a language in the comp plan that admonishes against that, and the design guidelines have been developed specifically to avoid the appearance of that. Anyway, moving on, just the unique opportunity this represents. Our goal and the opportunity this represents is to ensure an orderly and attractive development of this property over time, consistent with the comp plan designation that has been in place for many years and was recently affirmed by this board at a gateway location and a much better result than what would happen by right. Just to speak briefly to the question Mr. McGlennon raised about how this relates and what we know about what will happen in the uses here to other projects, I would respectfully submit that this application with the conditions proposed, which include the design guidelines and the master plan, which build on a lot of knowledge that the county and the staff has developed over many years of approving projects and having things go well, things go not as planned. This is as or more protective of the county's interest in what happens on this property than any other shopping center that I'm aware of that's been approved. As you have said many times, Mr. Glennon, on the dais, you never know ultimately what the end users are going to be, right? There's no certainty in that. You're approving a land use, not the end user. I remember my very first zoning case in the old building in front of you and your colleagues was for the Windsor Mead Marketplace Shopping Center. And I had an indication from a letter of intent who that anchor tenant was going to be. It was going to be Belk, we thought. And I wanted desperately to be able to say that at the public hearing. I knew what would be an attractive end user, and I thought everybody would want to know, and I'd help, get support for the approvals. And the developer at that time was a very old school company that took their reputation very seriously, and they said, absolutely not, Tim. They scrubbed my presentation, said, no, we're just no bait and switch game here. Yes, we think that's going to be the case, but until the lease is signed, we've got nothing. Until they occupy the store, you don't have any certainty. And we're not going to be, we want to do long-term business in this county and in this region, and we're not going to be out there hawking what we think will be the tenant only for them, to back out on us and we, damage our reputation. You just going to have to sell it on the merits of the master plan and the conditions. You can't sell it on the end users. And that was approved. And it turned out to be a very nice project. Lightfoot Marketplace is really no different in that case. It was a conditional use permit for a by right zoning. There was a commitment to what some buildings would look like, design guidelines, but the end users were not guaranteed. What we tried to do there, what we did, I think quite effectively, was box it into what it would look like and some general parameters. They ultimately couldn't fit within that box, as you may remember, right? And I suspect that might happen here, but we couldn't fit within the box that the board approved, that we agreed to. We had to come back, right? Even without the certainty that you all talked about, we still had to come back. There's a lot of flexibility in that plan for who those end users would be, but not enough, right? We had to come back and make some adjustments. So, and when we did, there was a standard by which we were held. Staff said, well, hey, Tim, look, we can work with you on making these adjustments, but you've got to still meet the original spirit and intent architecturally, traffic impact wise of what was originally approved. So, not to belabor the point, but as objective as I can be, I really do believe that this is as protective or more so than any other shopping center that's been approved in the county. And you have as much or more certainty about what could happen. Not only have we proffered a master plan and design guidelines, which is typical of shopping centers, but we've gone a step further, and in those master plan, design guidelines, and volunteered or agreed to conditions, we have further limited the amount of development that can occur there. First, we have limited the number of fast food restaurants to no more than 2, limited it to 1 convenience store with gas station and 1 bank. So, it's not wide open that any number of, it can get filled up with, those types of uses. We've limited those to what are reasonable, what are consistent with the shopping, not unlike Monticello Marketplace, right? I think there's 2 fast food restaurants, 1 bank, gas station across the street. So it's not inconsistent with attractive, well-appointed, and well-developed shopping centers. The other point is we have limited by traffic. So a lot of projects will limit a development by square footage, number of buildings. But as you fill up those buildings, not all uses are created equal. Some of them generate more traffic than others, right? And so it's the potential to exploit the approval by putting in different uses which have higher trip generations. You still meet the building square footage requirement, but the traffic projections that you put in place sort of are blown out of the water, and there's no mechanism, for the county to call that back. And I won't say that it was completely volunteer, but with the wisdom and encouragement of your staff, we committed to and agreed to a secondary sort of condition which on our development, which is there's an overall traffic generation trigger. Like our traffic study is based on a certain number of vehicle trips, and that's what our traffic improvements are all built around. And so if at some point in time those uses change where we have less square footage than is approved, but we're hitting those traffic triggers that the board based its approval on, or the staff based its recommendation on, that we're at a stop. We can't get to the maximum square footage because we built out on trip generation. So it's an integrity measure. It's a check on the commitment that we've made to doing this and doing it in a way that doesn't create traffic issues out there. In any event, I will briefly wrap up and with some highlights and answer your further questions. I do believe it's complementary to Stonehouse's more neighborhood commercial node. As you know, Stonehouse went through some recent zoning changes, reduced the size of its commercial development and non-residential development generally. They have a small commercial node at the intersection of 6 Mount Zion Road and Fieldstone Parkway that's more neighborhood in nature. This would be a complement to that, more community scale commercial. Right across the street, there are pedestrian connections that are part of our traffic improvements that would connect us to the Stonehouse community and their pedestrian connections across the street. Provide desired goods and services to residents at the north end of the county, and the ability to draw new tax dollars to the county. A large commercial node right at its border will be attractive to residents from other localities and draw in tax dollars that we might not otherwise get today. It's immediately adjacent to the interstate. It is identical to the recommendation of the comp plan, and to my knowledge, what the comp plan has said for my career, which has been about 20 years of doing this. And it's near the primary entrance to Stonehouse, which, as we've talked about, is expected to add a considerable amount of new homes over the coming years. And these are just some pictures of the character that is represented through pictures in the design guidelines. John Hopke will admonish me that the words are more important than the pictures, but I'm a visual learner, and so forgive me for focusing on pictures. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have and open it up to the team as well to respond.
Questions?
Got some, but I'm going to hold back just a little bit, see what else we hear here.
That'll do it. All right. Josh Mathis, did I pronounce that right? Sorry about that. I apologize. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you. So Josh Mathias, 3428 Colony Mill Road in Toano. And thank members of the board. Good evening. I wanted to start by saying, I've been hearing the scare tactics of, by right development, land being spread out, and I bit my tongue throughout, the different meetings and things, but like I said, they just sound like scare tactics to me, really. So anyway, to start out, an important message to remember about this proposal is just because you can doesn't mean you should. The concepts in this proposal, they're simply not needed, and the openness of the proposal gives a feeling of something like we should build something, we just don't know what to build. But at some point, we're going to build something. So going through the actual SUP the community impact statement lists the following proposed uses: retail, grocery, bank, self-storage, restaurant, and other commercial. The design guidelines section of the proposal lists additional possible uses of the property, including inline shops and a proposed movie theater. So this proposal is built on the premise that these types of developments are in demand across the county. And all we have to do is look across James City County and the city of Williamsburg to find that that is not the case. So retail, we have the Pottery and Newtown. We all know the condition of the Pottery. And we all know that Newtown is severely overbuilt. So much so overbuilt that it almost looks like a ghost town sometimes. So I have to ask, is there really a demand for additional retail in James City County, especially at the upper portion of the county, which is generally a byway for people to get to work and back? So a grocery store, Farm Fresh in Norge, closed a few years ago, and that location has been vacant. That location is only 8 miles away from the proposed new location. So, well, again, what would indicate that a new grocery store would even be able to survive at this location, even with the complement of Stonehouse right next door? So the outcome, would we be left with another vacant building, just like Farm Fresh, just sitting there? A movie theater. So looking at Newtown and High Street, it's obvious the demand for movie theaters is just not what it used to be. So these three items, they sound like good ideas on the surface, but I hope the board has really given careful consideration to the sustainability and the consequences should they not be successful, and the consequences of approving an open-ended proposal. So per the 2035 land use map, this stretch of road has been designated as a community character corridor, the definition being an entrance corridor that promotes the rural, natural, or historic character of the county. These roads are defined as important because they set the first impression visitors get when entering the county. Two of the specially requested uses of this permit in this property is the addition of no more than 2 fast food restaurants and a gas station. So I have to ask, is a fast food and gas stations the impression we want to give as an introduction to James City County? Finally, the design guidelines of the proposal describe the village center being the village center envisioned as an entertainment, retail, office, and business support complex. So the community has already spoken on the desire for development in a vibrant community in this part of the county. It's reflected in the 2019 survey and all other surveys that are sent out before a comp plan is issued. So in 2019, 85.2% of residents said that they think the efforts to protect the county's rural character are very or somewhat important. 78.5% of residents feel it's important to preserve farmland in the county more so than to have development. And finally, in reference to possible tax revenue, 54.4% prefer less development, even if it means paying higher taxes. So I don't fault the landowners for wanting to develop their land. I personally fault our predecessors who zoned this area for business long ago when circumstances were totally different. This proposal today is just simply out of line, not realistic or sustainable, and promotes a vision for this area that the residents don't share. And as such, I ask the board not to approve this permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Oakley. Welcome.
Thank you for your time. Sharon Oakley, 18555 New Kent Highway, Barhamsville, 23011. So thank you very much for your time today. The Village Center in many, many ways would be a very welcome addition to Upper James City County. In the 12 years that I've lived on the James City County line, like literally over the top of it, we have not had a single pizza delivered to our house. So, I would love to have some pizza delivery. I forget an ingredient when I'm cooking dinner. It is a 40-minute round trip to go get that ingredient. And if I have a wish list, I'd also like a Pilates studio close to my house. That would be fantastic. However, progress and development, as wonderful as they are, has to be done with safety and livability at top of mind. And there are some concerns about traffic that I don't believe have been fully mitigated yet that I would like to address today. So based on my experience with VDOT over the last 3 years, I really just do not share the planning staff's faith in VDOT and them signing off on this impact analysis. They did not require, as they are able to, either a speed or a crash analysis of the road, which is especially strange because for the past several years, there have been a number of citizens that have been involved with VDOT, with Sue, with John Lockwood from New Kent County, lobbying VDOT to make safety improvements on that corridor due to the much higher than average injury and fatality rate. Very sadly, just last year, this is Tyler. He and his girlfriend were killed at the Barnes Road intersection after 3 years of lobbying VDOT for safety improvements and them doing nothing. So that's why I don't share a faith in VDOT's analysis at times. Once that double fatality occurred, they did take the steps to reduce the speed 5 miles an hour, but that has not slowed down the crash rates, which are still far above the state averages. And I also believe that there are some omissions and errors in the traffic impact that really need to be addressed. And the omissions are really what I find the most interesting. The Highway Capacity Manual, either the 2010 or the 6th edition, either one, is the source of the inputs for the traffic impact analysis, the software that produces a lot of those documents. And what's interesting is that that manual has set caps for roads and various conditions and so forth. And Route 30, just with year-over-year growth, is already very close to the capacity for a 2-lane highway that has a center-left turn lane, which this road does not. Particularly at Barnes Road, as we know, that is a massive problem. Furthermore, Barnes Road, which is a 2-way local connector, is already over capacity according to the Highway Capacity Manual guidelines before anybody starts cutting through or more houses are built, et cetera. So without that crash or speed analysis, I was also curious as to what the speed impacts on the road would be, particularly around Barnes Road intersection and then extending towards New Kent County. I do not have access to that software. I have Excel, and I have the US DOT Federal Highway Administration Traffic Data Computational Method Handbook. So taking those equations in some Excel, I ran some numbers with the numbers that were in the traffic impact analysis that was done by DRW. And using some of their numbers, it's interesting, critical speed gets dropped to 40 miles an hour almost immediately on that road, just from volume, without the addition of the 16,000 daily trips generated by the shopping center. And that is using a 1,900 vehicles per hour per lane as the input, which is not actually a good free flow speed for that road, because that free flow speed is only valid if there is ideal geometry, good weather, and the traffic stream is entirely passenger vehicles. Obviously it's not, it's about 15% heavy vehicles. And there are driveways or an intersection every 150 feet extending from Barnes Road to the county line. There's also school buses, rural mail vehicles, and garbage trucks. So it is a very complex road situation right there. So using 1,900 as a free flow speed to come up with all of these outputs doesn't seem valid to me based on quite a bit of research. Is that my time buzzer? Okay, so in conclusion, as much as I would love pizza delivery in a Pilates studio near me, I would implore you to delay this approval, require more analysis, particularly from VDOT, a speed study and a crash study, because this road and the Barnes Road intersection are already dangerous, and adding 16,000 daily trips will only result in more crashes, injuries, and God forbid, more fatalities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Kimber Smith. Welcome.
Thank you. Members of the Board of Supervisors, Chairman Hippel, thank you for your time and for allowing me to speak about the Hazelwood Farms Village Center application before us tonight. My name is Kimber Smith. I'm a resident of James City County, and I reside at 3051 Heritage Landing Road, Williamsburg, Virginia, 23185. I've been a resident of James City County the vast majority of my life, I'm happy to say. My professional career has included 35 years as a local real estate broker, a company owner, employer, and active participant in and supporter of this wonderful community we all call home. I'm a longtime friend of the Hazelwood family and know and respect them both personally and professionally. Being a friend of the family, I'm also familiar with the land that is subject of the proposal before us tonight. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the application for the Village Center. The Hazelwood family has owned and been a steward of the land for 135 years. The three Hazelwood siblings filing the application represent the fourth generation of the family, and they all grew up on the farm. This land and the future use of this land are very dear to them. They care about how the land will be developed. They want the uses of the land to be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, and they have sought to partner with the county to see that through. They've been lifelong stewards of the land and feel an obligation to provide the proper foundation for the future development of the land. The entire property is currently zoned B1 general business and is essentially an island of land bounded by 3 roads. It is located immediately adjacent to a major interstate interchange and directly across Route 30 from the main entrance of the Stonehouse community. One of my past assignments during my real estate career included overseeing the brokerage operation at Stonehouse in Mill Pond. I can tell you firsthand that the primary want heard from residents and prospective purchasers alike was the desire to have a retail center located near the Stonehouse community. I think this opportunity is rare. It's a rare one for the county in that the Hazelwood family has spent over 5 years on the effort to develop a vision and comprehensive master plan that aligns with the county's own comprehensive plan. The family has spent a great deal of time and money to research the uses of the land, the traffic considerations of development, engineering, and design guidelines for a cohesive development of the land. Very few landowners are as forward-thinking as this proposal demonstrates. Usually large parcels are listed for sale as is, and potential buyers bring their own ideas as to what works best for them, as opposed to first considering the larger community's plans and vision for the area and creating a master plan that aligns with that vision. Large parcels are often broken up and sold piecemeal, which often results in a patchwork of uses, designs, and visual inconsistencies. Larry Hazelwood, R.M. Hazelwood, and Debbie Hazelwood Drudge have all placed a high value on the legacy of the property and what happens to it once the family no longer owns it. They put together a very thoughtful and orderly plan for the property, which includes conditions that will run with the land. Unfortunately, none of them are getting any younger. So they realize it is also important to stay the course in this effort and to ensure the future that the land is secure and conforms with that plan. To summarize the favorable attributes of the proposal, the property is currently zoned B1. It is located in the primary service area. It is consistent with the James City County Comprehensive Plan and has received recommendations of approval from the James City County Planning Division and the county's Planning Commission. I heartily support the proposal, and I strongly encourage all of you to grant approval by the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. All right, Kyle Seal.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kyle Seal. I'm a resident of 3248 Oak Branch Lane in Toano, Virginia, 23168. And I do apologize for any shakiness. This is my first board meeting or anything like that, or really speaking in front of a crowd. And I believe that speaks volumes about my disdain for this project. I am a current resident, if you can't tell by my address, of Stonehouse, and so I drive that intersection every day. And I can tell you with a lot of confidence that in the morning and at all times of the day, people driving through there do not know how to drive. And I believe that also says that it's not ready for this type of development. And I do not believe that this type of development is really for Toano really at any point, whether it's in my life or my children's life. I can speak firsthand about a grocery store, which is one of the proposed plans for it. My sister worked at Food Lion when it was first developed in Norwich. She worked there for about 4 years. And every night that she would get off, she would either be harassed by random men or approached by strangers to the point that they had to have men on staff to actually walk her to her car. And I do not want that coming into my community. I don't think that that is a valued asset or anything like that of this plan. Look at the trend in Williamsburg and the surrounding areas. Strip malls, as loosely described by the plans, are not the trend. In Newtown, where I was actually just last night, you can see there are a lot of vacant areas. And some of the photographs that they used on their presentation were some of the local strip malls that I wouldn't really want to be around 8 o'clock at night. They include bars or even areas that have, tobacco and such for sale, and I wouldn't really consider that prosperity. So I would like for you to consider to go against the motion of this project, basing it off of those facts, and also that the reason that many people moved to Toano, being my family as well 15 years ago, was that we liked peace and quiet. If I wanted to have a lot of access to movie theaters and grocery stores late at night or really whenever I wanted, we would have moved to Williamsburg or Newport News, which actually are not a very far drive, being that most vehicles get in excess of 30 miles per gallon. It's not much of a hike anymore. So I do hope that you guys plan to move against this motion, being that it's not in the best interest of the people that live in that immediate area or what they would like to see done with their community. And I do apologize that I'm coming at this sort of half-cocked. I actually just heard about this yesterday night, and so I wanted to have my voice heard, being that I thought there probably were not going to be a lot of people coming up here to speak out against it. Now, being the interesting thing that I shared it on Facebook, I would imagine that there would have been more people here with the amount of people that were responding to the post that was posted on Facebook in disagreement with this motion. I actually think I got the most likes in that post that I do off of anything. And many people were in my age group, people that I went to high school with, people that, we would like to have a fast food restaurant as close, but we all deal with going to Wendy's that's, 15 minutes away because we enjoy the peace and quiet. We enjoy that, when the sun goes down, the lights typically go out, and that it's a peaceful part of the county, other than the random couple deer that seem to find their way in front of cars every now and then. I believe it will be good for the community. I believe that if there's money coming from this project, that it would be better invested in, say, the pottery, if there's any way to revitalize that at all, because we all do know that is a bit of a stain on the county, being that it is not a high-traffic area, and it does create a couple of lights that are unsightly, and in my opinion, take quite too long to change when you're waiting at them because somebody went into the pottery by accident. So I thank you guys for your time and for hearing me on this. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a good night.
Thank you. Darnell Privish, pronounce that right? Did I mess it up terrible? I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's fine. I'm Darlene Prevish, actually.
There you go.
And I live at 211 Old Stage Road. And I have some very serious concerns for this development and would ask that you postpone the vote until each of you has the chance to come and drive down where we are at rush hour early in the morning and at around 5 in the afternoon. You will see what life is already like with regards to the traffic through this corridor. When people are getting off work at Tueno Industrial Park, there's a lot of issues through that corridor, and especially like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, it took us 10 minutes to get out of my exit because we literally turned right to go into Tueno right there at Old Stage Road, and it was horrendous. Everything was backed up on Croker Road, down Rochambeau, down Route 60. It took us 30 minutes to get to New York Deli. And the biggest thing too is that when we have those fatalities, we've had 2 fatalities in the last 3 weeks on right there at our exit. So Waze directs all the traffic to Barnes Road and to Old Stage Road. I live right there and happened to look out my window. I work from home. And I was like, what in the world's going on? It was just a steady stream of cars. And then I saw a Walmart semi go past my house. And so I started counting between the commercial box trucks, the cars, and the semis. I counted 49 vehicles past my house in less than 2 minutes. And I had to get back to work, so I couldn't keep counting. We've got to figure out a way, especially for those Barnes Road people, we've got to figure out some better way. At this point, they can barely make a left turn to try to go towards West Point. And it's everything they have to do to gun it. I've been nearly rear-ended numerous times where it goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and then there's that immediate left turn. I can't tell you how many times, and people will race you. We have our RV up on the northern neck, so every Friday we're heading that way. My husband sometimes will have a trailer behind his truck, and I drive a separate car with my dogs in it because people try so hard to race you that he has nearly had people hit him 4 times over that period of time. We've had a neighbor on Old Stage Road who's replaced his mailbox 3 times this summer because the road is so narrow, it will not accommodate that traffic. Barnes Road is exactly the same way. I'm concerned about the independent studies that were done, and Sharon went over some of that. There's concerns about noise, light, and other factors. The pathways for the bicyclists for the comprehensive plan doesn't seem to be well addressed. I could go on and on. I'm concerned about the fact that Sporting Goods just announced they're going to close, so now they're closing. JCPenney's is closed. That's what's happened in York County. We know with COVID, so many people are buying online right now. So how much retail do we really need? It's restaurants and things like that that hold a shopping center together. I feel like this needs to be a little more clear what they're planning to put in there so that we don't end up with another Newtown. You know, he mentioned several things. Windsor Mead. Staples has moved out. You know, several stores have moved out. A lot of stores are empty there. A lot of stores are empty everywhere. So I just feel like this plan is a little too vague. I feel like there needs to be more taken into account. I don't believe that the buffers are substantial enough for the people who live on Barnes Road to keep them from having to deal with some of this. There's just so many things that bother me. All the fatalities, the 2 young people who were killed trying to get to work at McDonald's right there at Barnes Road because of what's going on. So I really think that we should think this through as well as we should, and build some provisions in it, not only to improvise, but to improve responsibly. I'm sorry, my father was a wealthy man. I am not. He chose, instead of giving the money to people like me, he built football stadiums for his community, for the high schools. He built libraries for the community college. We're country people. That's who we want to be. Please at least take our thoughts into consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, that was my last speaker card, so I'll go ahead and close that public comment session and look for the board for discussion
Well,
or questions that they might want to
did you
ask
wanna
staff.
start?
Or
I did have, so we've heard a lot of concerns about the traffic, so I wondered if we could talk about that for just review that a little bit, or,
Promise.
and
Thank you.
perhaps hear from the applicant as well. Just, I mean, we've heard there's an issue out there that, and so what discussions, and I mean, I've got Rossi's a great guy, but I mean, I'm waiting on, it's gonna be 10 years until I have a solution to a problem that is already here. So, what kind of, what kind of commitment do we have that we can mitigate some of these issues if this were to be approved?
Sure, and if I can just speak generally to the process that the applicant has to go through, I think
Sure.
maybe that could be helpful for
Sure.
the public who may not be familiar with it. But for a project this size, the applicant's required to do a traffic impact analysis, which looks at the impact of traffic on the surrounding transportation network. That's reviewed by VDOT, it's reviewed by the county. We also hired a consultant to review it, to give comments and make sure everything was in good shape. All three groups did sign off on the traffic study. And then for the conditions that are being proposed, planning staff took the improvements from that study that would need to be put in to mitigate the traffic as a condition for approval. So those would include the signalization of the Route 30 Fieldstone Parkway intersection, the addition of double left turn lanes on northbound Route 30 at the property entrance, the addition of a right turn lane on southbound Route 30 at the property entrance, the addition of a multi-use path along property frontage. That's actually just from the county transportation plan. The signalization of the Route 30 eastbound I-64 off-ramp, and then the closing of the second existing crossover between Fieldstone Parkway and 64. So planning staff took directly out of the approved study those proposed improvements and conditioned those to be put in. And there's also in place conditions that make sure that those improvements are put in before development goes into place. So it's not as if the commercial development could all go in and then the transportation stuff is put in later. It'd have to go through a detailed process before ground is broken.
And I'm sorry, did you mention speed? Did I hear anything about speed on that?
I did not, and I don't know if there's anyone from the applicant team that could, I don't know if Dexter's here tonight, that could speak to the specifics of the speed aspects of the study, but that's a little beyond my expertise.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, thank you, Ms. Sadler.
No, you're fine, because that's what I was going to ask about. So since you're there, I've got a million questions. So can you tell me one more time where the lights that would have to be placed, or that they, because of the traffic? And I don't know if that's something you or the applicant, whomever.
So yes,
I just want to make sure I understand all this.
Yes, ma'am. So the conditions would require the signalization of the Route 30 Fieldstone Parkway intersection.
Okay.
And then also the signalization of the Route 30 eastbound I-64 off-ramp.
What about the westbound?
That would actually be dealt with on the other Hazelwood application, the rezoning, which is part of, because the traffic study was done for the south side, which is the rezoning, and the north side, which is the SUP, the proffers for the south side include specific transportation improvements that are caused by that development. So for the north side, those are the two intersections.
I'm visualizing it in my brain
Yeah,
as I
it's
drive
hard.
through there.
So basically, those are the two intersections that require signalization as part of the north side development.
Okay. And I know that there's, I think it was Mr. Trant might have mentioned, we've got 1,800 to 2,000 homes coming online in Stonehouse. At what point do those homes coming online, when does that trigger anything in conjunction with what they're doing, because we're going to have 2,000 more homes out there anyway. So I'm trying to figure out what triggers what in order to get these traffic improvements done.
Gotcha. So for the Stonehouse proffers, there is a proffer that deals specifically with the Route 30 Fieldstone Parkway. And before a certain amount of residential units can be built, the developer in Stonehouse actually has to put in the traffic signal for the Route 30 Fieldstone Parkway. And so I believe actually with a development plan that's been submitted, they're looking at putting that signal in, which means that if this were approved, the developer of this property would have to look at adding to that signal. So the Stonehouse proffers require for that signal to be put in before a certain amount of units could be built. And then throughout the Stonehouse development, there are additional triggers where every time you get to a certain residential milestone, different traffic improvements have to be put
So
in.
we're going to be getting a light there one way or another.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can personally tell you I'm glad to hear that because I can't get out of there because it is a lot of traffic through there. That said, I do know that when we were having our multiple Zoom meetings with VDOT trying to get the speed limit reduced through there, I know that they had done quite a few crash studies. Are you familiar with any of those, Paul, or anybody? Jason might be. I think Jason was helping. Is that something that is still part of that same corridor? How does that relate to what they're trying to do? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but just trying to connect all the dots here.
Yeah, those were separate
Right.
studies. I do know that they take that into consideration as they're reviewing, new plans that come in. So that would be something that they would take into consideration. But I do believe that the folks who were reviewing them at the time were very separate. It wasn't a part of this. It wasn't a part of the same discussion.
So even at the time, though, the crash studies would only allow us a reduction of 5 miles an hour.
Correct. So as you and Supervisor Larson have said, VDOT does have very specific standards, and they are hesitant to move off from those engineering standards that they've come up with. So in that instance, they weren't willing to drop the speed limit any more than that 5 miles an hour. As they review this new application and have the new data and can take those studies into account, we may see something different, but we haven't been given any indication that they're willing to do that at this point.
So since you have experience working with VDOT, God bless you, a light there as people are coming from New Kent or actually going the opposite direction, having a light there, and that's where, again, where the lanes switch, 2, 4, whatever. Having a light there, do you think, in your experience, that would help slow traffic down?
I think you would have to be more cognizant of the lights in the area and slow just in general, yes.
Okay. And so I don't know if this is you or somebody else. So we would have a light there, and then we're looking at 227 as you're coming off the east.
Hand back off.
Coming off, sorry. Trying to figure out all my driving patterns here. As you're coming off from the east, eastbound, there would be a light there. Would that be for left turn heading
I believe so,
towards
yes.
Stonehouse? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then it just kind of yields out the other way?
So that would be for traffic that's turning left headed towards the village center off of the eastbound ramp.
Okay, all right. So that's part of this project?
Yes, ma'am.
That's part, okay. Let's see, if I have any other I've got like 5 pages of notes. I might have to go piecemeal here. All right, so we talked about that. Perhaps your engineer could speak to the synchronization of lights. I've heard frequent comments that, would be stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, all the way up Route 30. Is there someone that from your team that could speak to how that would work? I'm not interested in stopping every 5 seconds.
And don't go on Monticello,
I know.
where the speed limit is 45 miles an hour.
Next to Williams Dow W Consultants, LLC, 2319 Latham Place, Midlothian, Virginia. This is a very long-range plan, okay? So we got to bear that in mind. This is master planning for pretty much the infinity of the future for the county. Stonehouse has been around pushing 30 years. It's still ongoing. If and when all these signals are put in place and all this development happens, invariably the traffic is going to be decreased. As far as signal coordination, yes, obviously.
Decrease or slowed down?
Oh, excuse me, the speeds will slow down.
Okay.
Okay. You can look at any commercial card in the state. When it was open country, it was 55, 60 miles an hour. When it's commercial development and the signals are spaced every 1,500, 1,000 feet, the speeds come down. It's typically posted 45. So that's the future when all this happens. The coordination question, you've probably had an experience in James City County with some poor coordination on Monticello Avenue for the last 5 years or so. They adopted a system of traffic control that was supposed to be automatic, and it doesn't coordinate traffic. So they're switching back to radio control coordination systems, and those are reliable and do provide coordination and progression. The speeds come down further when you have a full corridor and you do start approaching some of the capacity limits, overall level of service C as opposed to A or B. The operating speeds will go even lower, below the 45. But that's the way the signals are timed to progress to handle those peak hour conditions. But they'll be progressive during peak hour conditions. They typically don't run coordinated on weekends and that sort of thing. But that'll be a VDOT radio control system that's provides as much coordination as is possible. It's really just a question of the development happening first before those signals come in place. VDOT's not going to allow the signals until the traffic thresholds get to certain levels. As far as, if I have my druthers, there would be some more signals in certain places as a safety function, but they don't do that. That's all I can predict about the future on this one. We've taken into account all the development in this corridor, Moss Creek, build out a Stonehouse. We've set our traffic limits to fit within capacity limits of the intersections. We've backed into our numbers for our traffic caps. It's entirely conceivable that the real development might not be able to use all the land because we don't have enough traffic capacity to allow full development, depending on the mix of uses. So we've been very careful to put an envelope around this to govern the traffic.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anybody else? I've got a few more things. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to stop for a moment and thank everybody for all the great communication regarding this proposal. And I appreciate hearing from all the citizens. Some have been opposed, some are in favor, and some just have questions. And I'm hoping that tonight, by us asking questions and everybody else sharing their comments and staff and the applicants, that we're getting accurate information here. And I think accurate is a key word. I also want to thank staff. I've had many conversations. I appreciate all the phone calls. Thank you so much. There have been in-depth questions that I've had, and you've provided lots of info. We've gotten lots of great reading material here. I appreciate all of that. And I'd like to also thank Mr. Trant for being willing to meet with me and provide more information and answer all of my questions. So when I moved to the county almost 20 years ago, one of the things that attracted me to where I live is the beautiful scenery in the farmlands. But I don't own that farmland, and I know the Hazelwoods have afforded us the opportunity to enjoy your property, and we haven't had to pay the taxes or insurance on it. So thank you for letting us enjoy your beautiful land. It's my understanding, based on conversations I've had with Mr. Trant, that you guys are ready to retire, move on, figure it out, make changes, and do what you got to do. And I apologize if I'm getting into family matters here, but this is kind of where we are right now. I just wanted to, I just want to, it seems like we're looking at two possibilities here, either approving a master plan that the property owners have in place, or forgive me, sir, but I don't think it's a scare tactic. I think it's a reality based on my conversations that children, grandchildren are looking at subdividing it and building individual, whatever they by right can put in there. I mean, it's just a reality. It is what it is. So trying to make the appropriate decision here based on that. Is that a fair assessment from you all that that's the game plan, more or less? Okay. So I guess at this point, a lot of my questions I think we've talked about. Mr. Trant, would you mind if I asked you a few questions? So, thank you, I'm sorry. Based on some of the discussions that we've all had, if this property was divided by children, grandchildren, whatever, and they decided to subdivide it and build individual businesses or whatever it is they wanted to do, how many separate access points, and you may have said it, somebody may have, but I just wanted to confirm, could we possibly be looking at coming out onto Route 30 right there?
Sure. I'll let Arch sort of throw something at me if I've got it incorrect, but I do think in all sorts of creative ways to finesse development plans and wiggle through regulations, but I think a fair and conservative estimate is a minimum of 5 access points on Route 30. There's 5 parcels now. That property consists of 5 parcels. That each one would be entitled by right to its own access onto Route 30, and so I wouldn't think that they would develop them the way they're currently configured. In order to maximize the value, you would do a boundary line adjustment to get the size of those parcels reconfigured to be more marketable, and then but that would still preserve for you that the independent access of each of those 5 parcels. The 5th parcel, if I were doing it strategically, would probably have a stovepipe out onto Route 30, and it'd be a large residual parcel in the rear, which would also have access to Barnes Road. We have, as you know, through this project, it is conditioned that there would be no access to Barnes Road. But the corner parcel at Route 30 and Barnes Road would have access not only to Route 30 but to Barnes Road, and that residual 5th parcel would have access to Route 30 and also Barnes Road. I suspect, a by right use, proceeding strategically would then seek to do a minor subdivision on that 5th parcel, which would create as many as a result residual 5. That would give you a total of 9. And depending on how they were broken up and sold over time, there may be the ability to do a second minor subdivision. But the short of it is, and more to your point, that it would be very likely at a minimum of 5 access points onto Route 30 and probably 2 on Barnes Road.
Do you happen to know if there would be a requirement for these parcels or businesses to have connectivity within their properties?
Not if they were developed by right. I don't believe so. I don't believe there would be any. They would be developed individually with individual site plans, and there wouldn't be the opportunity unless they had to go through some sort of legislative process to require connectivity. No, ma'am.
So with what you all are proposing, we're looking at where Fieldstone comes in and out. That's the access point.
The 2 access points ultimately, but yes, our primary signalized full left in, left out, right in, right out access will be at Fieldstone Parkway. Yes, ma'am. There would be a secondary right in, right out, I believe, closer to the interstate, but that we would be limited to 2 access points and a series of corresponding traffic improvements.
Are our assurances on this project the same as other shopping centers that you spoke about earlier, with the Marketplace, Lightfoot, Windsor Mead, are our assurances the same as other centers we've approved in the county? Can we can depend on these expectations? Granted, I understand you can't just say, well, we're going to have a Belk or we're going to have a this or that. I get it. That happens once you have the establishment and then you lease it out to whomever. I get the process with that. But I just want to make sure our expectations will be met. And forgive me if that sounds harsh, but I just want to make sure that we have that assurance.
Oh, fair question. And I guess to the Belk question, I owe Mr. McGlennon at least one clarification. He did ask me that night who the tenants would be, and I unfortunately was not able to disclose who I thought it would be. But you were interested in knowing. The answer is, and I'm biased, but as objective as I can be, yes. In my experience, and I certainly defer to staff to throw tomatoes at me as well or to dispute this, but for shopping, what I would say is for individual parcel development where I or others have proposed individual uses, single uses on single parcels that required special use permits, you get a lot more detail and a lot more information because it's one use, you've got the end user identified. But for shopping center development, I believe that the package of design guidelines, and I went through the Lightfoot Marketplace rezoning approval today. I read through the board package and the staff report and all the design guidelines and architectural elevations, and just to refresh my recollection on what they said and to have some comparison. That's probably the last major shopping center, at least to my knowledge, that was approved in the county. And I do believe that in terms of the assurance of the end product, what it will look like, the protections to the county, that this application is equal to or greater than that. We have a more robust set of design guidelines, candidly, in my view, and I think the master plans are of comparable detail, and I think we have a more comprehensive traffic impact analysis and a set of conditions which are sort of enhanced over lessons learned at the Monticello Marketplace and other other similar SUP conditions, SUP applications that have been approved. So, nothing's perfect, and everything's in the eye of the beholder. So, can I say that your individual expectations will be met out there? I'd probably be, it'd probably be a bridge too far. But I do believe that what I can say is that this is as protective or more so than any other shopping center that I'm aware of that's been approved. And it is leaps and bounds better than in terms of securing the traffic safety, the pedestrian connectivity, and the aesthetics of development of that property than you will have under a by right scenario.
That's all I have for now. I might ask you to come back if that's okay.
Excuse me, you can't talk back. This is for our discussion now. Well, you may be able to talk to her after the meeting, but during the meeting, this is a control meeting, and now is the board's turn. And so I appreciate it. Thank you, though. Yes, sir. Jim, did you want to go next?
No. You guys continue.
I've asked my question about the traffic.
You have anything, John?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm wondering whether we're at the stage where we're ready to just sort of talk about where we are on this.
Yes.
Yeah. I will talk about where I am.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, Mr. Trant, thank you very much for your great memory. I had no idea it made so much of an impression, but that's wonderful. And if I could just say, I don't think I would rush out to order that pizza just yet. It's probably going to be a while before anything of that nature is going to be available to you. I think in some ways we're needing to think about all of this in terms of what's involved in this application tonight and what may separate to some of our opinions from each other. You know, I'll start by just saying that there's no doubt in my mind that the Hazelwoods have a long and distinguished history in the county, and that they have the interests of the county in mind, that they, and more particularly, the interest in the long-range future of that property and the resource that it provides to their family, and I respect that, and I know they have not always appreciated my perspective on things, but I do seriously recognize their sincerity and commitment there. And I'm glad that they are thinking about this in terms of a comprehensive approach to the property. I also appreciate very much what the staff has been doing in trying to both draw the attention of the applicants to the ways in which the county really feels it needs to seek some protection from the impacts, the negative consequences of development that may occur. So I do recognize that they've been trying to be very creative and thoughtful in addressing issues like the amount of impact that the development would have by not only looking at square feet, but traffic impacts and so forth. And so I really do appreciate all that. And I will say that I think there's a real benefit to having a master plan, that it is a good thing to be talking about the entire parcel of property, as opposed to the piecemeal kind of development. I certainly wouldn't have argued for let's just go ahead and let everybody develop willy-nilly along the corridor as they see fit. But given the zoning of the property, that's something that could have happened. I don't think it would have been seen as the best way to get value out of the property, and I think that, you know, even given the commitment of the property owners to a good outcome for the property in terms of quality and so forth, it is important to recognize a few other things about it. And one is that they are naturally seeking the greatest benefit financially out of the property that they can reasonably extract, and that's why staff had to kind of encourage them to do some things. Maybe it didn't take a whole lot of argument. I wasn't there for those meetings, so I don't know. But it's still the case that they are reasonably going to want to get the maximum value from that property. And part of that process says basically, we want to have the property free from the burden of coming back to the board periodically for approvals of SUPs for particular uses within the property. And that's where I kind of separate from some of my colleagues and from the staff, I think, a bit, and certainly from the applicant, because I think that we play an important role here, and the role is not just in terms of putting up barriers or obstacles or hurdles that an applicant has to overcome, but in recognizing that really this is the opportunity that citizens typically feel that they have to express their perspective on what's happening in their community. When a proposal is coming forward that they think will have a significant impact, and which we've thought would have a significant impact, which is why we conditioned it on a permit being awarded by the board, that if we close off that option too frequently, then I think that citizens sort of feel like they're not connected to their government. And so I think it's a very important thing. And I think part of this is just my philosophical perspective that as much as I appreciate the great work that our staff does and their professionalism, there's a reason that governments are elected. And that reason is to serve as the voice of the people that we represent. That doesn't mean we always agree 100% with what everybody comes to say, because you're not going to get that anyway. People are going to disagree on different things. But I think that the public hearing process is an important safety valve, gives people an opportunity to express their opinions. It surfaces issues that might not have come to the attention of staff otherwise, and plays some other important roles as well. And so from that perspective, I think that I will generally line up on the side that it's better to have the board reviewing cases. And in this case in particular, I think it's important because I think that we would generally agree that the pizza delivery stand is not going to be opening next week, and that unless there's a deer out there who teaches Pilates, I'm afraid that studio is not going to be operating anytime in the next few years either. This is probably going to be a while in the process of development, and I don't know what the future holds exactly. I don't know whether people are going to want to go back to movie theaters again, or whether there's going to be an interest in a hotel in Toano. Is it going to be related to a casino in New Kent, or who knows what? But I'd like to have the notion that at some point we'd have a real chance to reassess in a process that is public and open as the public hearing process is designed to be. And so that's really my sticking point. I'd love, a master plan's fine. I sort of look at I guess I don't have as negative a feeling about Newtown as some people do. I think the developers there took a real risk when they said, we're not going to put in a master plan, we're not going to put in a proposal that's going to do everything right at the beginning. We're going to come back to you. Now, I wasn't on the board, believe it or not, when Newtown was approved. But I will tell you that I felt an obligation to give some benefit of the doubt to the applicants from Newtown when they came in, because they were willing to take that risk and say, we don't know what the future holds, and we're willing to come back as we develop and see whether there's a market for what we're trying to do, whether we need to make certain changes, whether this is the right way to use this particular parcel of land. So when we come in for another action, it will be with that sense that we didn't insist on just getting a blanket approval in the front end of the process and basically preclude further public discussion. And I think I've certainly, in the case of Newtown, been more likely to support proposals there because of the fact that they were willing to recognize that conditions change. And I think in this particular instance, I think we're looking at a process that's far enough along in years that conditions are going to change, and we're going to want to have that opportunity and not just say, gosh, I wish we hadn't done that 20 years ago. So that's sort of where I am. If this plan were open to the normal SUP process, I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable in supporting, but without that, that's a real problem for me. So there you go.
Else? What's other folks have to say?
Well, I would just make a couple of comments. First of all, I appreciate your family's dedication to this community, as I appreciate the citizens that have come out to speak tonight, that have emailed. My grandmother went to Matthew Whaley. Maybe you went to school with her, Greta Salyer. So I have deep roots in this county as well. My dad lived out in that area for many years. I do find several things about this appealing. The location, it stops the sprawl. It stops traffic from going further down either way. You're jumping off the interstate, jumping back on. If you live in the area, yes, you're going to spend time, but the traffic hopefully mitigations that are happening, I feel will help alleviate problems that I do think would be by right. And I think, yes, in a perfect world, offspring get along, but I've seen it too often where it doesn't have, there's competing interest. It's unfortunately, especially where there's land and there's possibility of revenue involved, there can be uh, things that do not match up with one another. And I just feel as though that will leave us with a bigger issue out there willy-nilly, as Supervisor McGlinnan used the technical term. Um, that is my concern. I very much appreciate the master plan. I'm sure it's not easy to see land that's been in your family not be, farmland any longer. We get this a lot. Here, save rural lands. Well, in order to save rural lands, somebody's got to buy them. I mean, you can't ask a landowner that has the availability to sell, to not do that, to not want to leave something for their family. I think this board is committed to working on protecting some lands moving forward. That takes money. That takes agreements on pieces of property. We probably could not afford to buy this piece of property, though. And I'm not so sure I would want to, because I don't want to see, as I stated a little bit a few minutes ago, I don't want to see things go out. What is appealing to me about this is the location. It's where we should be putting, in my opinion, our commercial development. So, thank you.
I said my stuff.
I just got a couple of observations, and I'll come back later with a summary. I moved here from Newport News in 1994. And the reason I moved was to escape what was down there. This was a wonderful place to come to. When I moved here, 199 hadn't been built. 199 ended at John Tyler. You had to go up Strawberry Plain. Monticello Extended wasn't there. Newtown wasn't there. It was a very sleepy rural area. There have been some positive things. Been some very negative things that have occurred in the subsequent time period. And I tried to escape the Lower Peninsula, and I said, maybe this is a great place to come. I dedicated a lot of my time in the subsequent 26 years to trying to make sure that that didn't follow us up here. Fortunately, it has. I'll take a look at what we're proposing here between this and the part on the south side. It's going to wind up putting 4 traffic lights somewhere along the line in that area, right around exit 227. And you're exactly right. It will slow traffic down. You won't have to worry about high speed. You may still have to worry about fatalities at low speed, but you'll have low speed. If you want to see what it looks like, just go over to News Road and try to drive up to on Monticello up to Ironbound. Speed limit's 45. There are times when you're lucky if you can do 10. And it's all because we have those traffic lights and the traffic, and we didn't have as many lanes as they said they should have put in there. And what my concern is that we are building the new Monticello Avenue on Route 30, right around exit 227. I think you're going to wind up with a lot of stop-and-go traffic up there. One of the other questions that sort of came to mind listening to a lot of the comments here this evening was, this has been zoned B1 for a long, long time. I think it's unrealistic of a lot of people to expect that we're going to preserve it as rural lands or keep it as a farm or something like that. It's zoned B1. The question is, why hasn't it been developed by right? Pretty clear answer to me. It's not really cost effective to develop it by right. you don't get the highest and best use. You don't get the maximum bang for your buck if you develop it by right. So those are the couple of things that I'd like to sort of put there for people to think about. A couple other things. The need for more commercial. Several of the people who spoke this evening, I think, made compelling points about it. If you take a look at in my district, Jamestown district, the urban core of the county, we have a lot of empty storefronts. A lot of empty storefronts. And so I decided I would go back up today, and I made a point to drive up to Monticello, not Monticello, but to drive up to Lightfoot Marketplace. Because I remember when they built it, and Harris Teeter was there, and they had 2 outbuildings. And each of those outbuildings has 12 stores, 24 storefronts, nice little narrow ones. You could put 24 nice little small storefronts. Some businesses come in and use multiples, 2 or 3 of them. I don't know how many years it's been, 5, 6, 7, I don't know. I can't even remember when it was done, but it's been quite a while. And today, when I drove through, 12 of the 24 are empty. The other 12 are occupied by 5 businesses. And you've taken a look at grocery stores up in Norwich and the Toronto area closing. So, you know, I see maybe ultimately really, really long term, but I don't see a compelling need for it right now. And I would comment one other thing before we come back later and summarize, and that is that I've had email and text. I haven't had any phone calls. I don't know, maybe some people have had phone calls, but I've had emails and text from a lot of citizens. And I went back and made sure that I wasn't getting multiples. I think I had one person that sent me 2 emails, so I made sure I didn't double count them. And I said, where are the people that have been contacting me on it? And as of the time we came into the meeting, I had heard from 26 people. 23 individuals were against it. 3 of the emails were for it. 1 was from a corporation. 1 was from the Bicycle Advisory Group, which liked the bicycle plan. And 1 was from an individual. I don't see that we have a tremendous, overwhelming support for it from the people in the community who will be affected by it. The other thing I would say is we had this broken off from the other piece south of the interstate, and this came to us first. The other one hasn't come to us yet. And then the applicant, and I'm about to congratulate the applicant on doing public hearings, public meetings, where people can come in and listen to it and make comment and talk to them about the one south. But we didn't have any public meetings, no neighborhood meetings on this particular one that was north. So those are some things that concern me, and I'll pass for right now and come back and wind up later.
So, thank you. So, and I agree with what was said earlier, that we've had people comment on both sides of this, and it's always good to hear from everyone. I am trying to be as realistic as I can in this approach based on what has been conveyed to me about the future plans of that parcel if we don't have a master plan. And that is my biggest concern, having multiple access points coming off onto Route 30. That just adds to more confusion and more issues traffic-wise. I think that I agree with what Ms. Larson had to say, that I think, and I travel that corridor constantly, all the way up to go to grocery stores and to go do whatever I got to do. My my thought at this point is that if we do have something, if we do have something there, if we do have some lights in place, it's going to alleviate a lot of the backup that we're now seeing, and we hear constant complaints about that's backing up all the way to Lightfoot, because we do have our neighbors on the other side who are building out over there. This doesn't contain any residential. There's many a Saturday that we've just tried to get from our house just to go to Home Depot, and it's backed up all the way to James River. I can't tell you how many countless lights we have to sit through just to get there, or go to the grocery store. My thought is perhaps by having a well thought out plan, we can alleviate some of that constant traffic that's going up Richmond Road. I'm very concerned about the fact that if we have subdivided parcels, that there's one that could potentially be dumping out on Barnes Road. That concerns me. And to address what you had to say, Mr. Eisenhower, I believe it was you, why hasn't it been done now? It's my understanding that now's the time that the family has chosen that they're ready to move on, and rather than have it divided up and amongst everybody trying to figure out what to do, and then we end up with whatever by right. I think it's the family's timing and doing it as such because they're retiring and they're want to be retired. So that's based on what I've been, my conversations, that's my understanding. So those are some of the things that I have been weighing out. And realistically, as we said earlier, we got 1,800 to 2,000 homes coming into Stonehouse. We're going to have even more people. We're going to have 2,000 more people that need to be served. You're going to have all of those people then traveling all the way up Richmond Road to get to whatever stores that they need to get to. And correct me if I'm wrong, I know somebody was talking about Farm Fresh. Did not another company buy that and they're refurbishing that?
Chesapeake Bank's already in it.
They're in it, okay. And I think it was the Farm Fresh organization themselves that decided to close down. It wasn't for whatever. Okay, all right. It was my understanding that somebody had gone in there. Okay, so that is being utilized. So anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. And based on the conversations I've had with everyone involved, with staff, thank you all again. And that's what I have right now.
You haven't said anything. You haven't said anything.
I was just waiting for y'all to finish
That's all right
up.
to hear what you have to say.
All right. We ask for things on the board and in the county. We ask for a master plan. We ask for a development as a certain way. We ask for certain things to be put in development. And by sitting on this board, usually it's after something's coming to us. It's not before, like what we're seeing now. And I've got to hand it to the family for going, let's take this piece of land and let's put a master plan on it. Why it wasn't sold 30 years ago, Sam and them were using it. They're not going to sell it. They weren't interested in selling it. If it was going to be sold 30 years ago, there would have been a for sale sign there. And there hadn't been. It's now's the time that they're thinking, okay, we want to sell it. It can go right now, please hold your tongue. We can go right now with a metal building, an automobile, a trailer service, or anything else right now up there. I mean, and if somebody's gonna, and the county administrator and I, we went down to Portsmouth for the tunnel boring machine. And as we rode through, we talked about different developments along the way. And I'm so proud of what staff has been able to work with us, not only on this one, but other ones, to put good products in James City County. I said, see right there, that doesn't need to be in James City County. See right there, that doesn't. Look how that looks. Look how this looks. And I'm proud to say we've got a nice, and y'all have done a great job, a nice looking community in James City County. And the citizens done a wonderful job saying, what do I want, what I don't want. Well, you don't always get everything you want. Sometimes you get pieces, and just like with us up here, you know, we don't always get what we want. But, you know, a metal building with a trailer sales and that sort of thing, like on 17, not picking on anything on 17, but bam, right there. In the entrance, one of the entrances is James City County. It'd be like going through 17. A building supply store with gravel all over the place, wood stacked up everywhere. I mean, right on the side of the road can be put in there. It's within the PSA, and we're always telling everyone that please build within the PSA. Okay, I want to give y'all a master plan of what I want to do. I want to ask staff, what do I need to put in here? How do I need to put this together? What would be the most appealing that the board is looking for and the citizens are looking for? Well, we're not sure that's exactly what we want. Well, what do you want? I'm a little confused, especially if I was the applicant out there going, okay, and I remember when y'all came to us and said, this is, it wasn't yesterday. This is what we want to do. This is what we're trying to do. And working with staff and going, okay, what will work, what won't work, and how will it work, and what should we put in? I've talked to a lot of people in the community that said, I'm telling you one thing, boy, they have strapped themselves into a deal here as far as not having wiggle room. We're talking about they've got all this wiggle room. Well, trip charges and everything else that goes in there, what the cover's going to be, what the look's going to be, there's a lot they've put in here that we don't get. We have to go back several times and say, these are the things we'd like to have in there. I'm happy to see a master plan on a piece of land. Now, do I want something developed? No, I'd rather not have it developed if possible. Will it be developed tomorrow? No, but I do look at land rights and landowner rights. If I have a piece of land and it's mine, I'm not going to go, you know what? I can get $50 for it. Take 10. No, I'm going to get to $50 if I get to $50 because that adds on to anything else I have. It'd be like selling anything. It'd be like selling this pen and I can get it for $1. Why would I sell it for a nickel? So, you know, and I think sometimes but sometimes there's a loss of this is the owner's property, not James City County's property. So it's nice to see an owner come in and say, these are the things you're asking for. These are the things you want. And we're going to put them in place rather than let it go helter-skelter, willy-nilly, whatever, develop whatever you want, metal building's fine, and you end up with something that we probably would not really want in that area. Trip charges down the road, and that's why the lights are gonna stop that speed, guarantee. Do I want a ton of lights in there? No, I really don't. But if it stops somebody from getting killed, put the light in. And the people that are up in that area coming down into Lightfoot, that's a lot of activity up and down the road. That's a lot of gas that they're spending. That's a lot of time they're spending. And it's a 20 to 30 minute trip. So it does take a while. But I think the biggest thing is that we have a master plan, and that it's something we've been asking for, from landscaping to the look of the building to the entrances to the VDOT and looking at the trip charges, that swing. If they developed half of it and they've reached that part, they can't develop the other half unless they come back to this board and say, I need to be able to develop the other half. We get another bite at that apple at that time. So it's limiting the amount of traffic that can come in and out of this development. And will it develop? I think I agree with John. I don't think it's anything that's going to be developed tomorrow. It's just putting something in place for the children of the family to make sure it fits within what Sam and his children envisioned that this would be down the road. And they've gotten to the point where, you know, I'm retiring, I'm gonna relax, I'm gonna, you know, enjoy some things. So that's the start of my 2 cents, and I'll let someone else continue.
I would just like and I know you've kept a tally of your phone calls and texts, but I hope you would keep in mind, there's been many a public hearing that we've had in here, and we get paid the big bucks not to make difficult decisions. And there's been many a public hearing when we've heard a lot from the public, and sometimes we unfortunately disagree, maybe because we have, well, for whatever reason. But just please do keep that in mind, because it's, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, before we move on?
Yeah, let me sum up, and I'll just get out of your way then. Okay, we are the duly elected representatives of the people of this county, and as such, we have a duty to protect their best interests. It's never more important than in determining land use cases, because the action we take goes with the land in perpetuity. Once passed, we do not have the luxury of going back to reconsider our actions or modify them. We simply have to get it right the first time. The quality of and value of a master plan, to me, is directly proportional to its specificity. That's what I have a problem with. If we approve this master plan and the associated SUPs, the applicant gets maximum flexibility and significant financial reward. The eventual purchaser will be allowed to build up to 510,000 square feet of gross floor space on just over 79 acres of land and generate up to about not quite 1,600 peak hour trips above what already exists on the adjacent roads. They can build no more than one convenience store with gas pumps, 2 restaurants, and 1 bank with drive-throughs. And the cover page of the project design guidelines shows a potential food store, a potential theater, and a potential hotel. So we look at all that, and I ask the question, what is the eventual developer committed to build? Exactly none of the above. There is absolutely nothing to prevent the building of 510,000 square feet of office space and 0 commercial space. Remember, if you don't have it in writing, you don't have it. The bottom line is, even after approval, we really don't know what we will get. We also don't know when it will be built, whatever it is. The applicant has 5 years to begin construction beyond site and utility work before the SUP becomes void. If he pours a footer for 1 building and then goes belly up, the site can sit unbuilt for an indefinite period of time. If you want an example, simply look back to Settlers Market, Section 9 of Newtown. It was approved in 2006, one of the first cases I've dealt with when I first came on the board. The developer went belly up in 2008. The site was idle until a successor developer revised the plan in 2011, made it less intensive. Yet here we are 15 years later after the original approval. The bond has been called. The site infrastructure is still not complete. What little control over the process we have simply evaporates once we say yes. The land is already zoned B1, so it could be developed by right. There's a big issue made of that. The argument in favor of that is that the master plan gives us greater control over how the property is developed. I contend just the opposite. If it is to be developed by right, literally every reasonable use for a by right commercial development is going to require sewer and water. And it's going to require an SUP to bring sewer and water to the property. So if we said no tonight and they just said, well, we're going to develop it by right, they're still going to have to come back unless they want to develop everything on well and septic. And I'm not too sure that that would be very cost effective for them. So I don't take the issue of by right as seriously, I guess, as it would be portrayed. Any by right development that includes buildings over 10,000 square feet, buildings over, generate over 100 peak hour trips, convenience stores, you know, all the things that we've listed, those would still require an SUP. If you're looking at the list of things that wouldn't require an SUP that can be done by right, they're not really what they have in mind for this property. Major difference is that we're looking at approving specific proposed uses rather than approving a broad category of potential uses if we wanted to do it right. SUPs are generally designed to give the board the opportunity to evaluate the impacts of higher intensity uses on a case-by-case basis. And there is a case, as Mr. McGlinnan mentions, that in Newtown, that a developer came back and gave us the opportunity after the initial rezoning to come back and look at each section by section, which I think was to the benefit of everyone in this community. To grant a broad range of possible SUP uses without knowing the impacts, I view as being highly irresponsible. Staff report for this case specifically states the village center concept, the village center, does not advance the complete community's concept put forth within the 2045 comprehensive plan. That's a direct quote out of the thing. Then it has the word, however, which means, but we're going to recommend it anyway. It would send a clearly unwelcome message to our constituents if one of the first land use cases we consider after adopting the new comprehensive plan simply ignores its guidance. We're being asked to sign a blank check on behalf of those we represent. We do not know what will be built. We do not know when it will be built. We do not know what the impacts on our citizens will be. We simply do not know. And until we do know, I cannot support this application.
We don't know what will be built by right either. And it will be cheaper to run septic and well than it will a sewer and water line to that location. I can guarantee you, I do it for a living. So I can guarantee. So it wouldn't be anything to put a automotive thing or something with one bathroom. And then you've got a metal shell building for the entire county to look at. That's what I'm worried about. That's my side of representing the citizens, is what would be a better fit for that area. And, you know, by right, you may end up with Route 17. And, you know, I would like, and it's nothing against you or anything, I like if we're going to make statements or say certain things that then we take the bull by the horns and we go, here's a list of everything I want you to do. Every single thing from now on anyone that comes in here, so that they know, check, 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 check. All right, done. But we're not doing that. It seems like everyone is a change of some sort. And it's very frustrating to sit up here and go, okay, we want this, we want this, we want this. But by the way, I want to change that. By the way, I want to do something different here. It's not sending to me a clear, concise direction for anybody, whether they want to build a fence, a shed, or anything, or develop a whole area. And I think we're failing the citizens in that area. And I'm not saying we have been or anything else. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm saying that if this is an issue, then we have to get a solution to fix that issue. And I'm not saying it as far as this piece. I'm saying as a board as a whole, because I think we need to then give better direction to staff, because staff approves it, the planning commission's approved it, it gets here. I know that's what we said, and I know that's what we wanted, but maybe it's not. Maybe I don't have enough control. Maybe I need more control. Maybe I want to make sure you know, your trash cans are purple or whatever. If we're going to do those things, we need to then put it in a book and have it so that we can have clear direction. And I think that would be helpful. I'm not against your thoughts. I'm trying to put them into a direction for what the citizens and anyone else that has land can go, okay, this, I can do it, or I can't do it. I'm not even gonna bring it to them because I can't fit that. That's just my 2 cents on it. Anybody else?
The only thing I'd say,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, is that I think we do have that. It's called the ordinances, county code, which does specify when a special use permit is needed, things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, and the issue here really is whether we go ahead with a plan that sort of pre-approves things that would normally require an SUP. That's just a clarification.
Right, but we've got everything in line of what we're asking for, what we wanted.
Okay.
Okay, all right, any other discussion? Nothing left? I know. All right, thank y'all all for your opinions and all that. You know, I know we don't always agree on everything, but this is the way, just like the citizens, we figure it out, so thank y'all. All right, any motions out there that I may hear?
Well, after much deliberation in my own brain, and thank you again for everybody's comments and everyone's opinions and everything, I've tried to weigh the pros and the cons, and I think at this point, I'm going to make the motion to approve.
Motion on the floor. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Larson,
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan,
No.
Mr. Eisenhower,
No.
Ms. Sadler,
Aye.
Mr. Hippel.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right, next we'll move into board considerations, and Ms. Larson, we'll need to open the James City County meeting so that we can do an audit presentation.
And I apologize, are we doing the school after the?
Did it?
Oh,
already.
we
Yeah,
did
that's
it at
already
the
done.
beginning?
Consent
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got that
Sorry,
taken care of.
I thought we were bringing that on. Open the regular meeting of the JCSA Board of Directors.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Powell. Will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sadler.
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Here.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Mr.
Here.
Hippel. Ms. Larson.
Here, whatever it is.
Where I hear.
And so we have a presentation. We have the James City Service Authority Audit Report. We have Leslie Roberts, partner at Brown Edwards and Company. Is Ms.
We're gonna concurrently present the audit for both the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Directors. So, Ms. Day, I wasn't sure if you wanted to make any introduction, but if not, I guess we can turn it over to Ms. Roberts.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Night. I just wanted to re-welcome Leslie Roberts, who has been our audit partner for a number of years. She's here tonight to present the audit results for fiscal year 2021 for the James City Service Authority as well as James City County.
Anticlimactic, I know.
Oh, you never know.
Let's hope.
This would be a lot easier, right?
We want it to be anticlimactic.
Yeah. You saved the best for last, right?
It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see y'all. Basically, I was going to combine the two presentations because the Service Authority is a discreetly presented component unit. Just to say a few things specifically about the Service Authority. They got a clean audit report. Everything is similar to what you're going to hear from the county. They had no real COVID, issues, no big increases in revenue or expenses related to it. They had a good year. They increased their net position by about 4.9 million. And of their net position, as you know, a lot of it is invested in capital assets. They have net position of $191 million. Of that, 135 million is invested in capital assets. So, like I said, they still have a pretty good unrestricted net position of $41 million. So anyway, there's nothing really big to report on, but it is included, and their specific financial information is included in their own financial statements. They're audited separately and as a component unit of the county. There was one new GASB that we implemented this year. Well, the county implemented and we audited it. We had no problems with it. It related to fiduciary funds, and what was previously reported as agency funds is now reported as fiduciary funds. I go over the reports, and so I can be brief. That's all I'm going to go over is just the reports that we issued. The first report is on page 1 through 3. And this is the independent auditor's report. And basically, this is the bottom line. Can we come in here, look at your books, and say that they present fairly your activity and your balances at the end of the year? And yes, we were able to do that. You have another clean audit report or audit opinion.
And I beg your pardon, are we still on the service authority or have we gone to the county?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I just want to,
Yeah, no, I'm moving on to the county.
thank you.
So basically, the county had to implement GASB 84.
Okay.
And there is a restatement footnote about it. But the bottom line is all they did was take the agency funds and now they're fiduciary funds, and they're presented differently, and there's a little bit more presentation of their activity. So to reiterate, and this is for the county, on pages 1 through 3 is their audit opinion. And you had a clean, unmodified audit opinion. So yes, we are able to come in here and look at your records and say that they present fairly your operations and your balances. There's another report that we issue in conjunction with your audit, and that's over financial reporting. And so basically, because you're audited under governmental auditing standards, we issue that report. And if there were any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, they'd be in that report. There were none. Moving on to, as part of that report, if we have any issues of noncompliance, and by noncompliance specifically related to the Auditor of Public Accounts, they have some state code sections that they have us check out. And, procurement is one of them, conflicts of interest, and so forth. We did have one issue related to the disposition of unclaimed property. We had some outstanding checks that were over a year old that had not yet been remitted to the Commonwealth, and also some reports that weren't done within the required time frame. And this is a responsibility of the Treasurer's Office, not the finance. So that was, and I will kind of put that in context, that we have the big state code, plus then we have areas of the state code that they have us go in and specifically audit. There are several areas. It's a program that probably has 20 to 30 different categories. So this is one of the categories of what we look into. So I will say that it was one instance of noncompliance, but we look at a lot of compliance factors to come to that one instance. Moving on, there's another report that we present as part of your basic audit financial statements, and that's on your audit of your federal money and compliance with those compliance requirements. Each year we go through and we look at what you had as far as federal program money, and if you have money, if you expend more than $750,000, that's called a major program. And all your major programs like Head Start, and in this case, the COVID relief, all of those come into play, and you have to rotate your audits of those. So you go in and you pick your major programs, and each year, every 3 years at least, each major program has to be audited. You pick those, and then you go and look at what those programs, what their compliance requirements are. So it's kind of like the APA thing. It's like an audit within an audit. So you find the program, then you go through your steps. We did not have any, we picked 2 programs this year and had no noncompliance noted within those compliance audits. Also, we issue what we traditionally call the management letter. And most of yours is boilerplate. Within the management letter, you've got my contact information, Danielle, who is the director on your audit's contact information, and Katie Babb, who's your senior on your audit. So that's in there. If you ever need to call us, I don't think any of you guys have called me before, but that's not to say that other municipalities have not called me. I've had people on the board and on town council call me throughout the year. So that's where our contact information is. Of course, Sharon can get it for you as well. If we have any significant difficulties or disagreements with management, that would be in here. We didn't have any of those. And I always tell you guys, and I tell all of my clients, if we had that, we'd be talking much earlier than this. But the audit went smoothly, as I said initially. If we have any significant estimates that are embodied in your financials, we point those out. You do have some significant estimates, your OPEB liability, your pension liability, the useful lives of your capital assets, all of those, are estimates. We use the best factors for input, and we use actuarial studies for the pension and the OPEB. But bottom line is they are estimates. As far as significant disclosures, your capital assets, your long-term debt, and your commitments and contingencies note, and the dreaded COVID-19 note about all the activities surrounding COVID-19 and that there's still significant uncertainty on the impacts. As far as the rest of the management letter, there's just a copy of the management representation letter, and that's basically a hold harmless letter that's signed by management. And there is a commentary on the coming new GASB. So if you want to read that, it's very long. It's I think the next one that's coming up is lease accounting that we'll be dealing with, and so we'll be talking about that next year. But that's all I have on my presentation. I did have a lot more to talk about, but in light of the previous presentation and all you guys have been through, I think the highlights is probably what you want. But if you want more, I can talk about this, most of the night. Do you have any questions?
Any more questions? Anybody?
I don't think so. And I believe we had heard from Ms. Day that there had been some discussion with the treasurer's office, and it wasn't the Larson check that was held out for a year, I can assure you. Somehow it made its way right into the bank, but anyway, so.
Well, I can tell you, I really appreciate what you guys just went through. That was, again, and how you guys handled the whole thing. I haven't witnessed anything quite that intense, and I've sat through a lot of these. And y'all were very fair to all parties. That was so I commend you.
Board.
Thank you.
It was entertaining, and I thought y'all did. I just thought.
Well,
I
in
just
fairness,
really
you
enjoyed
think
the
GASB
commentary.
is entertaining. So.
Well, I don't mean it. Anyway, I just thought that you might appreciate it from somebody that was coming at it from the outside. I felt like you gave both parties their due.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway, and thank you guys for engaging us.
Nice to see you in person this year.
Yes, it is. Good to see everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Good to see you.
Karen Larson, I'll let you run your
Okay.
out through, and but we'll have to vote on the audit on yours and mine.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the audit reports and findings?
Motion?
Mr. Powell, call the roll, please.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
She get to vote?
Oh, Ms. Larson, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it seems as though it was gonna pass without me.
Oh, you're in
Not a
trouble
problem.
now.
Do we have any public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the consent
Move the
calendar?
adoption of the consent calendar.
Okay, it's minutes adoption. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no public hearings this evening, no board considerations, any board requests and directives? Okay, thank you. Mr. Powell, you have general manager's update. I know that you did send your dashboard.
Yes, just a couple other quick things to add. I wanted to let you know that, as you know, the Service Authority had its own independent budget this year for the first time, and as a result, this is the first time we were eligible for the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. And I'm pleased to announce that we did receive that award this year. I want to thank Ms. Day and her staff for helping us, and I want to especially recognize Ms. Luton for all the hard work she did on the budget this year. And the fact that we received this award in the first year, I think, speaks a lot towards the quality of the work that Ms. Luton did on the budget. So just wanted to let you know that and recognize Ms. Luton for her efforts.
Please thank her
Yes,
for
great
that.
job.
Congratulations.
Only other thing I have is Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
I hope-
Christmas to you.
I hope at some point we'll get back to your holiday lunch.
I do too.
And
I
we'll
do
be
too.
able to come by and,
I know we all miss it, but I
Yes.
do think that, I didn't think that we'd miss another year, but I do think under the circumstances that it's not prudent to have it this year, so hopefully next year.
understand. With that, we'll call for the adjournment until 1 PM on January 3rd, 2022 for the organizational meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
All right, next what we'll be looking for is a motion to accept the audit reports and findings.
So moved.
All right, Ms. Stevens, you call the roll, please, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Board requests and directives.
The only thing I have is to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and Happy Holidays. And thank you for your service as being chair of our board this year.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Put it.
That's all I have.
Real quick, I had 3 items. On December the 5th, I was invited to and attended the King of Glory Church new sanctuary dedication. They've gone from groundbreaking to having the first service in about 1 year, which was fantastic. Congratulations to Pastor Harmon and the members of the congregation on completion of that beautiful addition to the church campus. On this December the 7th, I went to the Heritage Humane Society ribbon cutting for their expanded facility, and from the city, Mayor Pond spoke, and from James City County, our own county administrator, Scott Stevens, spoke very eloquently, I might add, and I just stood in the background. But it's a fantastic expansion, and I want to thank Heritage Humane for the phenomenal service they provide to our community and all of the pets.
Yes, my daughter just got 2 kittens from there.
Oh,
It's a great place.
The new place has got the display booths right up front. You can't miss them. Kittens and the puppies right beside each other.
Get you right when you come in
Yeah.
the door.
And on the 10th of December, I did, in my role as our member representative to the Chamber of Commerce, and I sit on the Military Affairs Committee, we did a fundraiser this year and raised enough money to send home for the holidays. We sent 23 junior enlisted folks home with $300 each in their pocket for Christmas. We did the presentations at the Coast Guard Station at 10:30 on Friday and at noon over at the Naval Weapons Station. And when I was asking as we were presenting these where the kids were going, a lot of them going to California is about as far west as they were going. I had one going east as far as Ireland, and southeast to Puerto Rico, including a few others fairly close by. But I do want to thank all of the businesses and individuals and veterans organizations that contributed for the fundraising. We were able to send all the folks that applied and have a little bit of seed money left over for next year's program. So I think they will have a very Merry Christmas, and I'm glad our community could help.
Good work.
I saw where the school system had sent something out that the 2 new school board members had been sworn in, so I want to congratulate them. Are you all being sworn in at some point?
Shortly after I get sworn at.
You, Mr. Eisenhower, are you gonna invite us to come witness, or?
If you want.
Sure.
Did you remember you had to do that?
Yeah, you got to go do that before January 1st.
That's right.
We had a joint meeting with the school board on the 3rd, which was productive, interesting.
Yes.
We'll say that because it's the holidays.
It is. Right.
So we don't want to get negative. And it wasn't negative. It was very productive. I want to congratulate you on 2 excellent selections for the chair award. And it's I don't think people can really appreciate. I see that gift from Ben vehicle at so many grocery stores. I mean, it really is amazing. And out of tragedy, service has come, and so it's I commend you for recognizing that, and certainly the county employee, well deserved. And obviously, when I drove up and I saw all I was like, "What is going on? Why are all are that many people interested in the Motorola? That's amazing!"
That's what I thought
And
too.
so I did not understand what was going on, but obviously her dedication to her job and to the people that she serves is reciprocated. So I thought that I want to commend you on that, and then just wish everyone very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. There's lots of work to be done between now and then.
I'll just mention one thing in particular because a number of the other events I think people have already talked about. But let me just mention that on Thursday of last week, I was able to attend the opening of a boot camp for business entrepreneurs, people interested in starting small businesses. And what was particularly important about that, well, there are a number of things important about it. It was organized by Tijuana Golson of TAG Consulting at Thomas Nelson Community College, which is about to become Virginia Peninsula Community College, the historic Triangle campus. And there were a good number of people there for the training in fields ranging from salons to restaurants, but almost the overwhelming number of people in the crowd were there for in-home daycare training and certification, and to learn how to do a child care business profitably and successfully from their homes, to meet all the legal requirements, to meet the financial needs, to have a plan of action going forward. And it was just great to see dozens of folks, mostly young women, who wanted to open small businesses in their home, taking care of children, something that is desperately needed in the community. So very glad to see that happening. And our Department of Social Services, Barb Watson and Rebecca Vinroot and others were running the interference for the program on Thursday to make sure that folks knew exactly what was involved in getting certification and to run a successful business out of their home. So, and with that, I also join wishing everybody a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas, or just to enjoy the happiness of the spirit of the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the of course, the county luncheon is this Thursday, and I'll be missing that again because of HR TAC and Harumpha. So I'll be down there. I wish I was going to be here for the luncheon. I always enjoy that, and even though it's more of a drive-through, I'm missing it again this year. And so I've talked to the county administrator, and we're going to try to maybe do it Wednesday of next year. That way I can, if I'm on HR TAC and all that, hopefully I will be. I won't miss it. I'll be able to make that. Bernadette and Thumper, they do thank you very much. They do such a great job in the community in different ways and all. And I think they were very surprised at, the award, and the two of them deserved it very much. So I want to, say a thank you to both of them for everything they do and keep up the great work. Vice Chair, thank you very much for a fun year. I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to be chair this year, and I've enjoyed it very much, and look forward to what next year is going to bring with the chair and vice chair, and where we're going and how we can continue to move forward. So thank you for a fun year. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's. That's coming up. And I want to let you know that the county administrator and I went to Mary, which is the new boring machine, and they've just got the machine's here, but they don't have it put together yet. So they had a model. Well, this thing is 65 feet long, somewhere like that.
Something feet, yes, sir.
And 46 feet tall, so 4-story building. And once they put it together, and this is the flag of Hampton Roads, and the stars represent the 14 jurisdictions that are in HR TAC. So that's all printed on the front of this. And of course, it pulls itself through using the push from what it already puts together to push it through and keep rotating. So once we get to that point, we'll, once it gets going and all that, I'm hoping we can do maybe some tours of the board. So I'm going down there one way or another. I'm getting in that toy.
You're not going to have to pay like Mr. Bezos' clients on his space shuttle.
No, not at all. And, that's going to be a cool, and, to have that length and be able to see it, it is amazing.
We'll let you report back.
Yeah, and if you don't want to go down, that's
I'd
fine.
love to
But
see it.
you let me know.
Yeah.
Now, we're also, the I-64 groundbreaking, or the final, is on Monday. So it'd be
Tuesday. Or Monday.
Monday.
Oh, you're right.
Yep.
You're right.
And so that's on Monday. So whoever can come, that'd be great. And you let the county administrator know, make sure we, have your names out there and that's one. But, that's right in our backyard, so that kind of be cool to be right there. Because, York County's going to have several people there too. So we got to outdo York County. Tom's probably listening to this now. We saw him earlier. But had a great time at the groundbreaking. All the governor was supposed to be there, and something came up at the last minute. He couldn't make it. But Secretary Valentine did a great job, and she'll be moving on in her career to another position, she said today. But she's done an outstanding job with HR TAC and transportation and that sort of thing. But it's amazing right now, this project right here, we're spending over $1 million a day, 7 days a week. It is unreal what's going into transportation. We're still fighting hard for our last bit of, they think it's going to be $600 million to do the last bit, 29 miles, getting us out of New Kent, out of James City County, so it connects the whole thing. So we're still pushing hard for that, and we'll continue. And but everything there is going well. I think that takes care of everything there. Like I said, everyone, Merry Christmas, and spend your time with your families or whoever you wish to spend it with, and enjoy it and relax and just love life. And County Administrator, we'd love to hear a report from you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I think you've covered it very well. I would say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and hope everybody's safe and happy during the time. So that's all I have.
All right, next we'll move into no closed session night, so that's good. Adjournment until 1 p.m. on January 3rd, 2022 for an organizational meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.